ask you, are you partial to freshwater pond swimming, pools in the yard, or do you like to float in the salty sea? Algae blooms be damned. It's all next on another Algae Edition, BPR live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. A day after the Senate passed a resolution aimed at limiting President Trump's military action against Iran, the Pentagon is asking Congress for another $80 billion to fund operations in the region. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is lobbying senators to provide $80 billion, mostly to pay for months of war and the thousands of cruise missiles, drones, and interceptors expended after the U.S. and Israel launched a war against Iran. This comes as the White House is asking for a record $1.5 trillion for this year's regular defense appropriation. While defense hawks on Capitol Hill agree that the U.S. must urgently replenish its global stockpile of munitions, the Iran war and the current ceasefire agreement are not popular. And senators from both parties may balk at such staggering expenses when the American voting public still feels the pinch of higher prices at the gas pump and the grocery store. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
It was a big night for New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. John Campbell, a member station WNYC, reports his endorsed slate of congressional candidates won their Democratic primaries on Tuesday.
Mayor Mamdani backed 3 Democrats for the House of Representatives, and all 3 won. That includes Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier, a community organizer. She toppled incumbent Adriano Espaillat, the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Former City Comptroller Brad Lander defeated incumbent Dan Goldman. And Claire Valdez, a state lawmaker, won an open seat in Brooklyn and Queens. Their victories marked a major show of strength for the mayor, a significant figure on the political left, and they sent a shock to the Democratic establishment that lined up behind other candidates. Like the mayor, Valdez and Avila Chevalier are members of the Democratic Socialists of America. For NPR News, I'm John Campbell in New York.
A federal court in Texas has sentenced 8 people labeled as Antifa. The defendants face terrorism charges after the non-fatal shooting of a police officer at an ICE detention facility. Dylan Duke with member station KERA reports.
It's the first prosecution of people accused of being affiliated with the Antifa movement since President Trump designated Antifa a domestic terrorist threat last year. Lydia Koza is the wife of defendant Autumn Hill, who was sentenced to 50 years in prison.
In the face of this grotesque distortion of anything that could ever have called itself due process, I am livid.
Antifa is short for anti-fascist, and it's an ideology, not a centralized organization. The defendants deny any links to terrorism. Their sentences range from 30 to 100 years. For NPR News, I'm Dylan Duke.
Stocks are trading higher on Wall Street. The Dow was up 433 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Officials in Worcester say safer streets, better signals, and more bike lanes are paying big dividends when it comes to safety. The Worcester Guardian reports the city's first Mobility Action Plan report points to fewer crashes, new crosswalks, expanded bike infrastructure, and improved traffic signal operations as Worcester works toward a safer transportation network. The results are in the city's first annual Mobility Action Plan report, which tracks progress on Worcester's long-range transportation strategy. The plan, adopted in 2024, outlines 46 recommendations aimed at creating a transportation system that's safer, more connected, and less dependent on a single mode of travel. Brockton native A.J. DeBonsa Jr. is the first Massachusetts prospect to get first pick in the NBA draft since Patrick Ewing did it in 1985. DeBonsa was selected by the Washington Wizards yesterday. The Davis School in Brockton hosted a watch party, and the students went nuts when the 19-year-old's name was called. DeBonsa completed 1 year at Brigham Young University before entering the NBA draft. Elsewhere in sports, Red Sox wrap up their series with the Rockies in Colorado this afternoon, 3:10 start. 6 World Cup soccer matches today. The first 2 start at 3 p.m., the last 2 start at 8, and we are in for a beautiful couple of days. Sunny, low 80s today and tomorrow. 76 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One. offering their dining and entertainment card, Savor. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Yeagan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Senator Elizabeth Warren is going to be here with us live in person tomorrow. Friday, excuse me, at noon on Friday, talking about the housing bill. I think that'll be a big thrust of this conversation we have with her. Noon on Friday, live here at the library. And we are on tape next week for our annual summer vacation where we all take a break from Jim.
By the way, before we introduce, hi Marjorie, before we introduce our topic, one of the reasons Senator Warren is with us is because of the bill that she and Ayanna Pressley worked on for years around housing affordability, got huge bipartisan support. Donald Trump's supposed to sign it today. As the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, that little sycophantic guy who basically sits on Trump's lap whenever Trump is around, is holding a press conference touting the affordability part of the bill. What does Trump do? Cancels the bill signing at the White House until the Congress passes his elections legislation, which has no chance of getting enough Republican votes. So I'm assuming, and by the way, I'm guessing Senator Warren was going to the White House despite their relationship.
I'm guessing that
for
she
this
was.
Signing. So it should be a hell of a discussion on Friday.
Well, the president, he told us, Tim, he doesn't care about America's financial problems.
Exactly. So we're going to get into national politics a lot later in the show, the state of the war negotiations, all that sort of stuff. But we're starting today local. As you know, as the state's top court has so far rejected 3 ballot questions this election cycle, 2 big ones. Voters won't have their chance to repeal the state's decade-long ban on rent control or vote for the ban, something housing advocates have been working on for years, potentially even killing negotiations that have been going on behind the scenes for some sort of real estate developer, housing advocate, broker deal. The Supreme Judicial Court has also pulled a question on reducing the state income tax and another one, which we will not talk about today, on legislative stipends from the fall ballot. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. Call or text. Does this make you feel totally powerless? The likelihood of the legislature doing anything on the income tax, regardless of what side you're on, I would say is 0. The likelihood of the legislature doing anything on rent control when there's not the leverage of a pending ballot question, I hope I'm wrong, is also 0. So you get no action from the legislature. That's why people go to the ballot. And you won't have an opportunity to vote on these questions because of technical flaws. So our number is 877-301-8970. How are you feeling about this, regardless of your position on the issues? Do you feel like you have no recourse, no place to put your political positions on 2 critical issues, how much your state tax is and whether or not housing is more affordable, depending on your point of view, for renters?
You know, the only solution, and I know you poo-pooed this before, but the only hope is that people in the Commonwealth just deluge their legislators and Karen Spilka, who runs the Senate, and Mariana runs the House, their offices, and demand some action.
Excuse me, were you here yesterday?
I know.
No, you don't know what I'm even asking.
Oh,
were you here? Yes,
I was
you were.
here, yes, I was.
When I asked the head of the Republican Party how many challenges they have in the legislature, what did she say?
She said that they have almost
30.
Yeah.
Okay, so 30 out of 200.
Fewer than that.
If you're an incumbent Democrat and you have no likelihood of losing your job, who are you going to be more beholden to? The real estate developers, as you've always been, or tenants? You know,
we always talk about how many legislators are big-time property owners, and
thanks to a great Boston Globe reporting project,
and landlords themselves, and could lose some income on this real estate. The rent control thing. But I do think it matters. If 617-722-2000 is the number up there at the State House, you can call them, you can email them, you can harass them.
I think you should.
I think you absolutely should, because it's just ridiculous. And, you know, the idea of these brokers' fees that are supposedly illegal, that they're not supposed to be able to get anymore.
Not supposedly. They are now
illegal.
Yeah,
well, you know what? They're still getting them. I mean, I have a kid that's looking for apartment. She's told me over and over again.
By the way, they're not illegal. Unless you hired the broker, you don't pay the fee. I'm sorry.
So you're facing this astronomical amount of money to try to rent an apartment at maybe $3,000-$4,000 a month, $5,000 a month, and then you're going to pay first month and last month and that broker's fee that's not supposed to be there anymore. I mean, it's just impossible. So I think it's the biggest deal in Massachusetts. We've become ridiculously expensive, and I think the only answer is harassment of our legislature, which is very ineffective.
Okay, you're arguing the merits of this thing. There are a lot of people who are opposed to rent control. There are a lot of people who think this insane proposal to cut the income tax by 1%. In fact, early polling, even though I think it's indicative of nothing until the campaign starts, showed the income tax cut had a significant majority. Regardless of your position, you are between a rock and a proverbial hard place. The legislature won't do a damn thing, so you go to the ballot, which you're entitled to do, and because of a technical mistake, one by the AG's office and another one by the drafters of the rent control, that was on the income tax, so the drafters of the rent control thing, you have no opportunity to say I'm for or against these things. It's horrible. And by the way, that is a reason alone why this pathetic legislature should actually hold hearings and do something in the next month.
Well, what about a local option? If
That's what the deal was.
Exactly. If your individual town wants to have rent control, like the 3 places that had rent control, wanted to keep rent control.
In 1994.
Boston, was it Cambridge? It was Brookline.
Cambridge was the second.
Yeah, and
Brookline,
what was the third?
I think it was Brookline or Somerville.
Brookline definitely had rent control.
Then it was those 3.
Okay, those 3. They wanted to keep rent control, and having lived in Brookline like forever, thank God, because I'd never be able to get there, move in there now. It dramatically changed the character of the town. Dramatically. What?
Marjorie, you said then do a local option. What is the measure? There was a home rule petition sent up by Mayor Wu every year that she's been mayor. Local option.
Yeah.
What have they done on that?
It fails.
Nothing.
But you know, I think the problem is us. People should make us think about this.
I agree.
Half the people in this Commonwealth don't even know who their legislator is. I forget who my legislator is.
Well, you're part of the half.
I'm part of the problem. But you got to let them know they got to do something about this. They get nervous about this kind of stuff. If they think people are paying attention, if they think they're operating under cover of darkness, which they are, and as we know, Spilk and Mariano decide whatever gets done up there.
Senate President,
if there is an outpouring of people being upset about this, if you are upset about this, and frankly, you should be upset about this because it's a rental disaster, not to mention trying a home disaster in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I want to read this text. And this question was asked yesterday when the Attorney General was with us. This is an anonymous text. So I hate ballot questions, but if the SJC decides they're flawed and they should be rewritten, the election is several months from now, why isn't there time to rewrite them? I can rewrite them in 30 minutes. The answer is because Article 48 of the Constitution lays out the procedure, the date by which you have to submit the petition, the date by which you have to get as many signatures as 3% of how many people voted for governor in the last election. It's all spelled out in the Constitution. It's too late now. Having said that, Hannah, one of our coworkers, spoke to Carolyn Chu, who's with us a few weeks ago, who is the leader of the coalition in favor of rent control. Their view is that these negotiations, even though we're told by the developer types that the negotiations are over, they're saying we're just going to go back to the ballot in 2027 and 2028. If the legislature was not as irresponsible as it is, they should go to the developers and say, you're just going to have the same fight in 2 years. Let's fix it now. Let's see if they do. 877-301-8970.
You know, one last thing. I get why the High Court rejected the income tax because the lawyers in the AG's office did make a mistake that's hard for me to understand, and I'm not even a lawyer. But on this one, I don't understand what the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court was thinking.
I said this to the Attorney General yesterday.
They're saying under the Massachusetts Constitution, certain matters, including religion, cannot be subject to an initiative petition.
Correct.
Well, this ballot question would have exempted units in religious facilities.
As I said to Campbell,
so it
affirms what the Constitution was unanimous, so we're missing something, obviously. Richard in Dorchester, you're first. Welcome to the show. Hi. Hi.
Richard.
We'll put Richard on hold. 877-301-8970. Kate in Connecticut. Hey.
Yes, good morning.
Whatever it is.
Good morning.
Hello. Nice to talk
Hi.
to you. What's going on?
Yes. I'll get to it quickly. I don't want to sound Pollyanna-ish, but I think we should withhold paying taxes. I say no taxation without representation and defund congressional inaction.
Well, I think your does don't sound like Pollyanna, Kate.
Well, also, this is a rare day.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
This is
great
a
idea.
day, Kate,
No,
when
I know.
Congress is not the
I know I
problem.
sound Pollyanna.
Congress is not the problem today. Congress actually overwhelmingly, in bipartisan fashion, passed Senator Warren's bill. The problem is the clueless President of the United States who refuses to sign this thing unless Republicans in the Senate pass his elections bill. Having said that, Kate, a lot of people feel like you do. Why don't you start, let us know how it goes, and get back to us. Kate, thank
No,
you
it's a
for the
great
call.
idea.
It is a great idea.
But it just
Are
shows
you
how
gonna do it?
much trouble we're
You doing
in.
it?
Doing it?
Yeah, you stopping paying your taxes?
No, I'm not stopping
Okay,
paying
fine.
my taxes. Okay, listen to this one. Why even ask us? Does it even matter? We voted for the audit, and look what happened there. An unsurprised Gen Xer. And that's a great point.
You know, it's funny. One of the people I admire most in Massachusetts, I can't remember his name, defeated a ballot question that put off tax cuts. And after he won 60-40, the legislature implemented the tax cuts despite the public voting 60-40.
That would have been the one and only Jim Browdy.
Oh,
from
that's
Cambridge,
right. That was me.
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
1990.
But
Thank
you know,
you.
I mean, things are better now in the legislature. We did have 3 House speakers in a row.
Felons.
Felons.
No, they were.
So
By
that
the way, I
wasn't
was having
good.
this conversation
That was
the other
not
night.
good.
People think it's not true. There were 3
in a row.
felons
Yeah.
in a row. Charlie Flaherty, who, by the
Flaherty.
way, I liked a lot.
I did too.
Finneran,
Great
who
guy.
I liked a lot.
Wonderful guy.
And Sal DeMacy, who was at the
That's right.
the celebration of life for
Yeah,
John Reinstein
another great
the other
guy.
day.
You know,
he is a good guy.
little mistake
but
here
they
or there.
are all felons.
Suddenly they were felons.
Exactly.
So we don't have any felons up
well,
there
except, excuse me, let me just say, I have to amend.
we're better off under the felons, Jim, I think, actually.
That's actually a good
Don't
point.
you think?
And Bob DeLeo, who I really liked, who was the
Yep.
speaker after the 3 felons, while he was not a felon, he was an unindicted co-conspirator. Can you confirm that I'm right about that? I'm 90% sure.
I mean, maybe that's
he
the
was an
problem. Maybe
unindicted
that's the problem
co-conspirator.
up there, you know.
By the way, you were right. We were doing far better under the felons.
Well, you know,
That is an
I'll tell you something
excellent
else.
point.
You know, in the olden days when I was first a reporter here,
Yeah.
people were obsessed with what the legislature did or didn't do. There was a lot more focus on it. And now people's local newspapers are gone, local news is gone.
Well,
people have no idea what's going on
Can I
up there.
explain that a bit?
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
As you know, my career, such as it is, started by being hired to oppose a legendary tax cutter, Barbara Anderson.
You became
she was
a legend.
She was. I mean, she is. And
You were a legend too, Jim.
You wrote a horrible piece in the Herald before you knew me well, basically praising her and disparaging me as wearing whale pants. But it's true, by the way. Look it up.
She did have whale.
It was a
whale
clueless,
pants, drove a Volvo,
piece
hung
of
around the Chestnut
crap
Hill
in the
Mall.
Boston Herald. What is my my point is, if Barbara Anderson or even little me called a press conference during a budget debate, this is true, at midnight, there'd be 3 television cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't just because Barbara Anderson was so powerful. You know what it was? Rank and file members of the legislature actually stood up to leaders and debated issues. It's because of the sheep-like quality of the rank. There are no debates to cover. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to kind of pay attention. You got to kind of pay attention. It's part
You
of
don't
your
even know who
duties
your
as a citizen.
legislators are.
Cynthia Cream.
Oh, that's
and
one.
Tommy Valario, I think, or something
That's
like that.
close enough.
I'm close.
Tommy
I have to look it up.
somebody.
Yeah. I'll have to
Actually,
look it
that
up.
Tommy Valario is the guy who built the reflecting pool.
No, that's Mr.
Also a
that's
felon,
Mr.
by the way.
Cafaro.
Cafaro is a felon, you know that.
I got to look.
Do you know
Tommy
that?
Vitolo. I had it wrong.
Sure.
Tommy Vitolo.
No, it's nothing like having to look up who your
That's
state
right.
rep is.
I was
to
close.
criticize
Begins
other
with
people
okay,
for not
who's your
being
state?
involved.
Well, you of course know.
I do.
I'm not going to even ask.
I know.
'Cause
Mike
that's
Connolly,
something-
thank you very much.
That's something that Jim.
Sal DiDomenico is
Jim
my state senator.
talks about them every morning.
Well,
Let's go to Richard in Dorchester. What do you think, Richard?
Hi, Richard.
Hey, good morning. The old adage that if one forgets what's happened in the past, you're going to repeat it in the future.
Yeah.
I don't think many people remember what rent control did to the city of Boston when it was in place. And you're looking at going down the same road of disaster. As a small property owner, tenants have more rights than landowners as it is now. And I understand that these big property owners are gouging tenants, but rent control is not the answer. You're going to destroy the livelihoods of thousands of small property owners and give tenants even more rights to even challenge a small increase in rent. And
how small,
Richard,
Richard, are you talking? How much property do you own?
I used to own 20, and I've been selling them off little by little.
Richard, let me tell you two things,
Because
if I may. The primary issue today to me, but I am going to speak to the merits of what you said. The primary issue is you don't even have an opportunity to voice your position here, either on the ballot or through legislative action. And with all due respect, I was a tenant lawyer in the South Bronx where there were pretty decent tenant protections. The tenant protections in this state, and I mean this respectfully, Richard, are so weak around eviction, it is pathetic. And I live in a neighborhood where I moved a year before rent control was repealed. It was a diverse community, a lot of wealthy people, a lot of low-income people. Now it is 100% upper middle class families. Nobody else can afford to live there. So the answer, I think, if I may, Richard, is having a legislature craft a bill that addresses concerns you have and addresses the choking cost of living for low and moderate income people, rather than just saying no. I don't mean directing that at you, but directing it at the legislators. Richard, thanks for your perspective, though. We appreciate it.
But it's important to remember, despite what Richard said, that the three towns that had it, Brookline, Cambridge, and Boston, kept it.
No, wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
They voted.
They wanted to keep it.
But the other 348 cities and towns that didn't have it voted to get rid of it
Right.
and lost 51 to 49.
Well, and I don't know how much money was spent to get rid of it then, but I would
don't know
suspect
either.
a lot of money was. The other thing is this whole thing, oh, the landlords aren't going to be able to afford to keep up the property if rent control happens. Well, anybody who's looked for an apartment in Boston now, or Cambridge now, or Austin Brighton, the so-called student ghetto, or even Dorchester, any place, they're not keeping up the property now.
Well, some. I mean, some are not.
But
That
it
is
has
true.
nothing to do with rent control, because people that are getting $4,000 and $5,000 a month, and over in Austin Brighton, if you have 6 kids in one of those places, one of those dumps over there, $5,000 or $6,000, they can certainly afford to keep up the property, and they don't.
Let me just say also to Richard, the proposal that we understood from Carolyn Chu from Homes for All Massachusetts that was being negotiated, that was, I think, close to the legislature buying in, gave far more leeway to landlords than the question that was on the ballot. And I think it would have been maybe not your total cup of tea, but not as strangling as you
And by the
thought,
way,
Richard.
when I
But
asked
thank you for your call.
Richard how many pieces of property he had, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you are in, if it's, say, 3...
They exempted, I think,
they
3
exempt you,
units and under.
Yes, 3 units and under.
Yeah.
So
Jill,
that's a very small property owner.
Jill in Medford, hi.
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 I think the problem is that there's no, we don't get to debate these issues. And we need to know enough to debate them. And if there's no transparency in government, we never get to understand what we're even talking about. And there are details. Rent control belongs to the cities. They know what they want to do. And when it comes to affordable housing, that's a really important issue. But in my neighborhood, they're trying to put density. They want to put like 2 triple deckers on either side of me with ADU units. That's like 40, 50 people living next to me.
But the solution, Jill, my attitude, the solution, in my opinion, because I'm with Marjorie on this local option stuff, if you don't like the housing policy in your community, then come November or next November, vote the people out that are responsible for it. But because they're the ones that are making those decisions that make you uncomfortable. But the most important point you made, you don't even have an opportunity to have a debate. Jill, can I ask you one last question before you go? Do you
Sure, but I'm just saying there's no transparency.
You're
they
right.
Don't tell the truth.
You're totally right. Do you long for the days when the speakers were all felons? Is that those were the good old days, weren't
I do,
they?
because
You
at
do,
least
yeah.
it was more obvious what was going on.
That's a great point. Thank you, Jill, for your call. That could be our campaign. Maybe a bumper sticker.
Let's go back.
the
Bring
felons.
back the felons. Yeah, that's a good idea.
By
All
the way,
great
you're a
guys, by the
genius.
way.
It's a shame you don't have a column anymore.
Yeah.
That'd
Somebody,
be great.
speaking of my column, we just got a text.
What'd they
Please
say?
plan a special show when Marjorie reads aloud her article concerning Jim's activities, and then she and Jim can debate who is right.
I don't want to be critical, but I happen to have about 500 copies of that. Let me just say, and by the way, if anything I say is untrue, please correct me. So we're fighting this question 3, which was a huge tax-cutting ballot question.
Right.
I'm leading the opposition. Barbara Anderson from Citizens for Limited Taxation was the proponent. Marjorie writes a column basically kissing up to Barbara Anderson. Here's what she says about me. Did you say that I was seen wearing pants with whales on them? Yes or no?
I did.
Okay, I never owned those.
No, I said you could envision him.
Okay,
I didn't say you were actually wearing them.
Next question.
I could see you envisioning.
Did you say I was driving a Volvo station wagon?
Yes, I did.
Did I have a Volvo station wagon?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You bought one right after the column.
By the way, that is true.
You did.
I did buy one.
He was inspired by me.
But I didn't have it when you wrote the column.
You did not. You did
Okay.
not.
There was
you know what
nothing true.
I said something very nice about you.
That
though.
I was the heartthrob of college.
I said that
Econ
you were the
101.
heartthrob of Econ 101. That's
I
right.
was.
And that's what I heard. Jim was the heartthrob of Econ 101. That was a long time ago. Pam in Andover, thank you for calling.
Pam. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you guys for. Oops.
Yep.
Are you getting an echo?
I know it's hopeless, and we're really sorry, but we hear you perfectly on our end, Pam. Keep talking. Okay.
Oh, we've lost.
Pam, we're really sorry. And by the way, every caller that hears an echo, we've tried to fix it. It's hopeless. But we hear you perfectly, so battle through as best you
Okay,
can.
here's a text from someone who's disagreeing with us because she says she's written this many times before.
Yeah.
I'm a center-left Democrat, listened to you for 20 years. I've sent this message, never read on air, so I'm reading it now.
Please.
Keep me anonymous. You're wrong. I'm over 70. My only income is Social Security, and the one unit I own is in the Back Bay. Thus far, I've been responsible keeping up a small rental property for 20 years. Each one of my tenants, sometimes with guarantor parents, has had 4 times the annual income that I have. And this person is going on, but it goes off the page, so I can't keep reading it.
Well, I said there are a ton of landlords, small landlords in particular, that keep up their places great.
But you know what?
What?
If I had a small unit in the Back Bay, you know what I would do with it?
Sell it.
Sell it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would sell it. Why don't you, I don't know who you are, but maybe you should look into that. Sell it, and then you wouldn't have to worry about this anymore.
Can you
I think
do
you
us
get
a
a lot of
favor?
money for anything in the Back Bay.
Marjorie is concerned about Volvos and stuff. I'm obsessed with only electing felons in the state legislature. If you can text us and ask if you join a citizens movement that I'm willing to lead part-time, because I have this other job, to try to get more felons elected to the House.
Our staff points out DeLeo was an unindicted co-conspirator in the
that.
wide-ranging corruption and bribery trial of former probation commissioner John J. O'Brien. That's when everybody was buying the probation jobs, and they were getting to be probation officers, chief
DeLeo
probation
is a really
officers.
good guy, by the way.
He's a really good guy.
So are the 3 other guys
you know,
who were
my,
felons.
My cousin got screwed at that probation scandal.
I
She should
know,
have gotten she should have gotten
but
a
let's
promotion.
not discuss who she got screwed by.
We're not going to discuss who she got screwed by, but
Okay,
she
'cause it happens to be a
deserved
friend
that
of
chief
ours who
probation
she was
officer
screwed
job,
by.
and she didn't get it because of that
Yeah,
scandal.
okay, fine.
Anyway, coming up.
By the way,
quick
none
break.
of them were felons.
They
as
were
far
not
as we
felons.
know.
No, my cousin certainly wasn't felon. She's an
felon.
upstanding person.
Not yet.
Coming up to this quick break, CNN chief national correspondent John King is in the library. He's going to talk about.
No, he's not in the library.
I mean, he's not in the library. He's on Zoom. Sorry about that. We're going to be talking about. We're out of time. Basically, I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim
You
Browdy.
are,
We'll be
that's
right
true.
back.
Years ago, Massachusetts ignited the revolution. GBH News is bringing together the people, the places, and pivotal moments that took Massachusetts from colony to Commonwealth.
We all really think it's important to get the history out there.
There's a little bit of a feeling of being plunged back into history because you're right here where it really happened.
Discover the stories at gbh.org/America250.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill, a garden destination 50 miles from Boston. Visitors can discover summer with thousands of blooms, twilight experiences, art exhibitions, and educational programs for all ages. nebg.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On Friday, Senator Elizabeth Warren is going to join us live at the library. And she was joining us, I'm assuming, in part to celebrate the signing today of her housing affordability bill. Well, not her. It was a large bipartisan vote, but she was one of the champions along with Congresswoman Presley. But as we said, Donald Trump canceled the signing today. We'll discuss this with John King in a minute. Plus live music with Bubble Wave and more. We're live on Zoom with CNN Chief National Correspondent John King, the man behind the great reporting project all over the map. Hey, John.
Happy Confusing Wednesday.
Yeah, well, let's start with the housing bill because it did get big bipartisan support. Elizabeth Warren is going to speak with us at least something about that on Friday here at the library. Why did Trump blast this thing out of the water when most of America is in a housing crisis?
Great question, Marjorie. Why did he do something that runs counter to what the country wants, what his party needs, and a chance to show that Washington can actually do something on an issue that you at home care about, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, or no matter where you live anywhere in the country. That is our president at the moment because he threw a fit and says he wants the Congress first to pass his election, what he calls Election Reform Act, and there simply aren't the votes to pass it. There aren't enough Republicans to pass it. There aren't enough Democrats to support it in the Senate. They couldn't even get the 50 Republicans. So this is just a non-starter. So the president has delayed the signing of a bipartisan bill that would help his party in a very difficult midterm election year and give all voters a chance to say, at least this once, Washington did what it was supposed to do. On a bipartisan basis, came together and did something hopefully relevant to our lives because he wants his pet peeve election changes that he's not going to get. Welcome to dysfunction.
You know, I was watching CNN last night, as you know we do, and I see you talking about election results, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then regime change came out yesterday with Jonathan Swan, who I think Marjorie and I agreed did the single best interview with Trump that has ever been done a couple of years ago.
That was very good.
And Maggie Haberman, both of the New York Times. And they said two things that are relevant to this. One, that he doesn't give a damn about the midterm elections, as evidenced by the fact that he, at least for a day, croaked this housing affordability thing. And then when they were talking about foreign affairs, and I know this is domestic, they said it was a line like, the foreign policy experts outside the Oval Office have to treat the Oval Office and the Trump administration as if it's a foreign country because they have no idea what's going on. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who does anything Trump tells him to do, is holding a press conference celebrating the signing of the bill, never having been told that Trump's about to just deep six the whole thing. So there is almost like intention to make life as miserable for Republicans in the midterms, John.
And you're absolutely right, Tim, but that all flows from a pretty, I would say, alarming thing, is that Donald Trump is about Donald Trump, and he's about one man. His own people in the White House, many of the top people in the White House who would normally see the Iran agreement before it was made public, before it was agreed to, before the United States government gave its word, never saw it. This was an incredibly tightly held group. So that's one controversy. Here, you're right. The Speaker of the House, who has become just a Trump sycophant, gets the rug pulled out for him by the same Donald Trump. Donald Trump's up on Capitol Hill today to talk to Senate Republicans. He has a lot of grievances with them. Their issue back to him is, number one, we disagree with you some. That is supposed to be okay in a democracy, even within a family, a Republican Party family. And guess what? Even if we agreed with you, we don't have enough votes to pass. But the President of the United States will not accept that basic math because he thinks if I want it, I get it. And that's the problem Washington has right now. And if he doesn't get what he wants, he pulls out the rug on everything else.
And as we said, Senator Warren will be with us in person at noon on Friday.
So, John King, I don't want to make too much of it because it's New York City, but Zoran Mandani, the new mayor of New York, the one that Trump said was going to just ruin the city in about 2 weeks, and then they became friendly, I guess, sort of. He seems to be a political kingmaker, at least if judging from the results from yesterday. So tell us.
Without a doubt. Look, I think you make an important point about the context of New York City. I would add to it that outside in Westchester, a moderate Democrat won a very important primary to run against a Republican in a swing district this fall, a race that actually matters to the midterm math, if you will. But on the races Mamdani got involved in, look, he took a risk here. He's only been mayor 6 months, right? 6 months. He went after two Democratic incumbents and then than the candidate endorsed by another Democratic incumbent who is retiring, Nydia Velázquez, and not running for re-election. Mamdani won them all. In the process, yes, he proved his clout in Democratic politics in New York City, and yes, he proved he wants to be a big player and that push a Democratic socialist agenda on the party nationally for the rest of 2026, and then more importantly, I would argue, into 2028. But he also is going to make some enemies here in New York City that are going to probably complicate governing. But he has decided he wants to step up onto the national stage. Now, he can't run for president. He was not born in the United States. But Bernie Sanders is in his 80s. You're going to have Senator Warren on. It's a great question to her is who is the leader of the progressive movement right now?
Yeah.
And who is the next leader of the progressive movement right now? And two New Yorkers, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and now Zohran Mamdani, want to push that forward. Just one other quick point I would make. He deserves his day, whether you agree or disagree with him. He flexed his muscles here, and he won 3 of 3. I would also say, though, this proves to me, again, the cancer in our politics is the primary system and gerrymandering. So essentially, 4% of the people in the 7th Congressional District of New York, 4% of the electorate, 33,000 voters pick their next congressperson.
Oh.
In one of the districts, it's 5% of the population. There are, on average, 770,000 people in a congressional district in New York. The winners in these races got 55,000 votes, 33,000 votes, and 38,000 votes. It's 4%, 5%, and I think around 7 to 8% of the population of the district, because whoever wins the primary wins the election. This is a mirror image of what Trump does in the Republican Party, and that's not a criticism of Mamdani. He played by the rule. He turned out his voters. But if you have your hands on the passion machine, enough to turn out 10, 20, 30,000 voters right now, you have wildly disproportionate power in American politics, just like Donald Trump does in the Republican primaries. Mamdani does in his city right now. The question is, can you take it now?
You know, speaking of taking it national, although New York may be unique, as you point out, even from and different from Westchester County, criticism of the Israeli government, what Netanyahu has done, seems to be a bigger and bigger factor in voters' minds, not just in New York, but around the country.
And this is a giant issue going forward, because you just made a key distinction. There is absolutely nothing wrong with criticism of the Israeli government. The Netanyahu government in the last few years has given people plenty to criticize. And there are people out there who support the Netanyahu government, and this is a democracy. We should be able to have debates about these things. I do think in one of these candidates, in New York's 7th Congressional District, the Democratic Socialist there has said some pretty provocative and I would say offensive things about Jews. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in criticizing Netanyahu and criticizing the current Israeli government, which is in violation of international law in the West Bank, for example. That's just a fact. There's plenty to criticize in terms of the action of the Netanyahu government. One of the things a lot of people are afraid about is that is spiraling into something else. The congressman, the incumbent who just lost, for example, in the 10th district, denied service at a coffee shop because he's Jewish.
Dan Goldman.
Because of his positions on Israel. And I think the Democrat who just beat him last night, I think, made a very fair point in the sense that, look, let's have these debates. You are free to criticize anyone on any grounds you want, but can we also have lines like, that somebody in the community who wants to buy a cup of coffee, he actually was buying the cup of coffee because his daughter went into the coffee shop to use the restroom, and he felt, I owe these people, make a purchase and give a tip. Some of this is wandering into what I would say is a dangerous place.
Yeah, I think they called him a genocide enabler. Wasn't that the phrase that they used? They were going to serve genocide enablers.
He took down the post. Just staying on this for a second, either you or somebody said, and my apologies, John, I was sleepy last night. It was not made sleepy by what I was watching.
Jim goes to bed early, John.
I'd like to go to bed right after a 4:30 dinner. Exactly. So the point was made, I think it was you, that it's sort of odd when the Democrats are on a path to great outcomes in all likelihood in the House, that this would be the election season for a Mamdani to pick a fight, an internal fight. For example, needless to say, Hakeem Jeffries, who is also a New York City resident in Queens, endorsed the two incumbents who lost. So, and while my attitude is I believe in more democracy, the better, all the time. You want to run, so few do, just run.
Amen.
However, what's the after effect likely to be when Mamdani decided to, again, take on a retiring rep who's still powerful, Vasquez, defeat Jeffries' candidates? Is there going to be tension, or does everybody say all that matters is November, we'll settle our scores in December?
No, of course there's going to be tension. I do think that whether you're Congressman Espaillat, who just got beat, Congressman Goldman, who just got beat, Congresswoman Velasquez, whose candidate just got beat.
Velasquez, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Velasquez. Look, they're gonna try to complicate his job as mayor. I would watch for the New York City Council to watch them just try to get in Mamdani's way a little bit and say, whoa, you want to come after us? Well, we can come after you. We'll watch how that plays out. He had to know the risks when he did that, and again, he went bold. And whether you agree with him or disagree with him, he was transparent about what he was doing, and he said plainly what he was trying to do, change the party. I think beyond this, Jim, both parties need to understand. I said this last week, I believe. We focus on Trump and we focus on the Republicans because they're in charge in Washington. And in a midterm election year, history tells us, and the numbers right now are so damning, there is every ingredient of a blue wave out there. The only question in my mind is Democratic candidate quality and Democratic performance. If Democrats put good candidates on the track, they're going to win races that they normally would have no hope of winning, in places they would have no hope of winning, because the country is in the mood for change. But that mood for change extends from the farthest left to the farthest Trumpy. I don't even call that right anymore. It just does. There are people who think the government is failing them. There are people who think the banks, the government, anything big is not only out to get them, but is purposely out to get them. That they think these big institutions, and sometimes they blame us too, wake up every day looking to screw them. Not just as an end result of their richness, but they actually want to do it. That's what people feel. And they are angry, and they want new, and they want different, and they are willing to go way outside their box, like when they voted a black guy president, way outside their box when they let Donald Trump have a hostile takeover of the Republican Party and then elected him president, way outside the box when they let him come back into the presidency after January 6th. People are looking outside the box because they think their parties, their system, the old way has failed them. And that extends to the Democratic Party. And if the Hakeem Jeffries and the Chuck Schumers don't see that, then they're blind.
So, John King, I have to just amend one thing you said. You just said a blue wave is likely coming. Do you know where there will never be a blue wave? In the reflecting pool. That's when there never be a... Thank you very much. I'm in the lounge on Thursdays. So, John, you have to settle a disagreement Marjorie and I had this morning. If you're an endorser, like a Mamdani, for example, and you endorse every candidate in the race, you're pretty likely to be able to say, I picked the winner. Is that correct, or is that not correct?
You're trying to get at the CYA move by the president in South Carolina, I assume, here.
Explain that for the few people who may have missed it. I love this.
The president had initially endorsed the lieutenant governor of South Carolina in the governor's race. She did make the runoff, but once it was clear to him that she was going to lose and the state attorney general was going to win, Trump said, well, I endorse him too. It's like endorsing the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Exactly.
It's like, no. But he will say he was on the right side, when he was clearly on the, he made a bad bet. He made a bad bet early on, and then he thinks you fix a bad bet by just saying, never mind, I endorse the other guy too. They're both great. But again, welcome to the world of Donald Trump.
We're talking to John King from CNN.
So, John King, everybody's concerned about whether this ceasefire is going to hold, the war in Iran, where the gas price is going to stay down and stuff. Now, I think reporters are reduced to every time Trump says something that isn't true, which is a lot, they have to add, there's no evidence to show that what he's saying is true. So where are we with J.D. Vance? Does he have more credibility when he talks about these Iran negotiations, or is he just doing the president's bidding and we don't know?
I would just take the names out of it at the moment and just give you the facts that we don't know if this deal will survive, right? There are conversations now, and there are everything from the Strait of Hormuz to Trump has been saying Iran has been willing to give up its nuclear program. Iran says we did no such thing. Trump says the inspectors go in tomorrow. Iran says no, the inspectors might be able to come in after we work some of this out. So both sides are saying, there's just a huge gulf between what they're saying right now. But what is on paper, just what is on paper, is beyond what the Republican Party and Donald Trump called treasonous when Barack Obama cut a deal with the Iranians. Yeah. They said it was treason. What Trump has signed is worse. It gives Iran, it keeps the regime in place. It gives them billions of dollars in money. It waives sanctions on Iranian oil, and it gives them control of the Strait of Hormuz. This goes well beyond anything in the JCPOA that Obama signed. Whether you agreed or disagreed with that document at the time, that's not my job. But remember what the Republicans said about it, including Donald Trump, who pulled out of it. And the document on the table right now is weaker. gives Iran more power, gives Iran more money, gives Iran more control. Those are just facts.
In our history around wars, presidents have misled the American public, but as Marjorie says, there's no statement that comes out of his mouth that you don't have to approach with serious
That's actually, it's a really difficult thing. That's not an anti-Trump thing. It is just very frustrating. If you do what we do for a living, or if you're a citizen of the country, and when the president says something, you have to turn to someone and say, "Can I believe any of that?"
Yeah, I know. Well,
Some of it, any of it, all of it. But everything. It's like, yes, Wednesday comes after Tuesday. I'm fairly certain of that. But if he said it, I would have to run it through the fact-check machine.
That's bold. John, you only have 30 seconds. You happy Jaylen Brown is still a Celtic or not?
They got some diplomacy to do there to figure that out. I would have taken Giannis in the right deal, but so it goes.
So it goes.
John King, thank you very much.
Good to see you. Be well.
We have been speaking with John King, Chief National Correspondent for CNN, the man behind the Great Reporting Project, all over the map. Coming up...
Nobody does better election coverage.
Oh, my God. They do great election coverage.
So beautifully.
Coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. She's going to talk to us about Cambridge is like doing an about-face. They were all in favor of taking your cocktail down the street. Now they're telling you can't have a drink until you've 30 minutes time period between one drink and two. We're going to find out about that. And, of course, a little bit about the World Cup and the rent control situation. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Brady, listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, different spokes for different folks. Percussionist Reynaliz Herrera has found an ideal instrument in the bicycle, turning spokes, wheels, and motion into music. She joins us with an ensemble and live performance. Plus, Jill Medvedow returns for Read on Arrival, our book club for short books with long afterlives. This month, Hiromi Kawakami's Parade, a Folktale. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, offering business and personal wealth management and private banking services, investing more than $240 million in local communities since 1994. More at cambridgetrust.com. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, committed to simplifying college planning for families over 45 years with trusted guidance, interactive tools, step-by-step videos, and more. MEFA.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Brady, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library. Thanks, everybody. You're back at the library on Friday at noon in person. Senator Elizabeth Warren, and my notes to myself say, who headed up to the White House today for the signing of the housing bipartisan bill. Well, actually, she didn't, as you just heard. We'll talk about that, plus live music with Bubble Wave. And speaking of music, we saw these people today. Jared is at the library today, and he's got a huge group of musicians. Percussionist and composer, I'm going to butcher this, my apologies, Reynaliz Herrera, uses a bicycle as a percussive instrument. She'll perform excerpts from Biconcerto, her four-movement concerto for solo bicycle and orchestra. They look fabulous. That's at 2 o'clock. Today, we're joined now at the library by Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, host of the Say More podcast, and co-author of the always delivered to your email Power Play newsletter. Hi, Shirley. Nice to see you.
So, Shirley, we were talking to listeners before you came about the rent control. It's not going to be on the ballot to bring back rent control. And Jim kind of poo-pooed my idea that everybody should harass the legislators,
I did not.
call them out.
I did not poo-poo it. I said it's unlikely to succeed, but they should, of course, do it.
Yeah, because there could be a local option. There could be some kind of compromise. So what do you make of this? I mean,
it was another stunning decision from the SJC yesterday, and you guys had the AG on.
Yeah,
just coincidence. It was good timing. Yeah.
Very good timing. I was following the income tax ballot question too, and that also got tossed by the SJC last week. So two of the biggest issues in the business community, incredibly divisive issues, gone. And I do think the tenants, advocates, are trying to continue negotiations, to try to bring a deal on rent control to the State House. They haven't given up, at least in their, in their kind of, public communications. But I don't know what leverage they have.
The leverage they should have, which they don't, is to avoid another zillion-dollar fight in 2 years. Legislative leaders who don't support this should say to the business guys, development guys, we made a commitment. We're going to pass something here. You're either going to be part of it or not part of it. If they knew legislative leaders were hell-bent on achieving a compromise, they'd sit at the table. But who knows?
Well, that's the problem.
I know it's a problem.
I mean, the Beacon Hill itself is divided on the issue. Let alone the real estate industry, right? The governor said she's open to a rent control deal back when it was, the ballot question was still around. I think the Senate would be. I think Karen Spilka would look at it. I don't know about the House. I don't know if Mariana would look at it. I don't think Michaelowitz will look at it. I don't think they would look at it at all. I think it would take a lot.
You did an interesting thing. I love these things. And you and your colleague, John Chesto, did a winners and losers from the disappearance of these two questions.
Yeah, it was a very clever column.
I have to say,
I love your new column.
I think I disagree with one of what I would call a winner, and maybe you did say this. I think we have Mike Minogue, who we haven't met here on the 16th for the first time. We had Brian Shortsleeve, the other Republican running for governor against to nomination a couple of weeks ago. I think they're huge winners, even though they lost the income tax question, because they get to rail against everybody. The court screwed you. I'm not agreeing with any of this or not. I'm just saying
right.
The Attorney General screwed you, the Democrat. Even though the court is all Charlie Baker appointees, the court screwed you. Beacon Hill always screws you, meaning the institutions. You only have one chance. Elect somebody from another party to rein this screwing in. And I have to say, if I was somebody who was upset about affordability, which is everybody, and not paying attention to the details, I'd be attracted to that argument. We need a different kind of voice because this sure as hell ain't working.
I mean, we didn't include them on our winners, but I would agree. They are.
Good.
Because you already saw that Minogue and Shortsleeve, they're already out there on social media saying that, I forgot which one, but one of them was saying, I'm still going to, if elected governor,
I'll cut the income tax.
I'll cut the income tax, and so they are writing it to their political bank on this one.
Can I also get one? This is a personal gripe, and I'll do it quickly so Marjorie doesn't shoot me. Everything I've read, including your colleague Larry Edelman and others at the Globe, and I have great respect for them, whenever they write about the income tax question, they write about it and say, very likely to pass. They're not students of history. Marjorie and I were talking about the tax cut that I opposed in 1990. We were as far behind as the don't cut the income tax people are today.
That was before they hired Jim.
Excuse me.
And we turned things around.
And we won by 20 points because the
after
campaign,
Jim arrived.
Because the campaign hadn't started. The campaign now, in quotes, is only, do you want to pay less in taxes? The campaign that has not started, or will now never start, is, and here's what you're going to lose in services if you vote for this tax cut. That's persuasive. So
I think you won because you had a great slogan. It was
did.
one of the great slogans of all time.
Ever.
Question 3, it goes too far.
And the basic point was we too agree there's waste and inefficiency in government.
And what about the children?
I don't know, Jim. What year was this?
1990.
I mean,
with a woman leading it, by the way, Barbara Anderson,
right,
who was 10 times more skillful than the high-tech council that stands for nothing except cutting taxes will ever be.
I mean, think about all, what taxpayers have been through. The housing. There's a housing crisis. Gas is, over $4. I mean, I think inflation. I mean, they just want to break from the government. I think they would take it.
Well, break from the government until they hear what that hated government does for them. And when good ads are put up saying, here's what $5 billion a year out of the budget, here's what that $5 billion buys. The point is, it would have been a fair fight in my estimation. It's not a likely anything, but nevertheless, it's not going to be in the ballot. We're talking to Shirley Leung, Power Play Newsletter, and the Boston Globe.
Okay, what do you think of the World Cup?
Oh.
Are you into it?
I am into it.
Great.
My last column on the World Cup, full column, was telling Bostonians to get over themselves, get with the program.
That's right.
And embrace the World Cup and enjoy it. And it has actually exceeded my expectations.
Why? How?
So is it watching the games, or watching the watch parties, or watching the Scotsman?
I've done it all.
Have you gone to a game?
I haven't gone to. Well, I haven't actually gone to a game. I've actually gone to a fan festival. I did that Sunday at
With
City
your
Hall
kids?
with my kids, and it was great. I mean, to see downtown alive on a Sunday afternoon. Everybody was crawling all over the place. It was awesome. Have I been to a watch party? Well, I mean, I've watched soccer games, right? Which I've watched more soccer than I ever have in my life.
They're incredible. When you think about it, the NBA, they're running up and down a basketball court. These guys are running up and down this huge field. I mean, it's just...
There's one difference, though.
What's
the
that?
basketball players occasionally score. That's
well, they do, but they do score. It's a little slower.
It's much slower. Well, and I love the fans. I mean, besides the Scots and the kilts, I love watching their Norwegians row. I remember seeing that for the first time on TV, and I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And my 15-year-old said to me, Mom, they're Vikings. It's a Viking row. It's like, oh, I get it now.
And how about the Cape Verdeans, who've done so well for that little country, and they've come in, they're kind of blasting away.
How about the Ghana fans? They tied England.
Right.
I mean,
That's
they
right.
Huge
That's
numbers,
right.
But
Didn't the Haitians do really well, too, recently, too? Didn't they tie someone, too?
Well, they had a big welcome for the Haitians. There was a big parties in Boston for the Haitians. Don't we have the third? Aren't we the third largest diaspora?
One of the biggest Haitians, one of the biggest Ghanaian populations.
Yeah.
So in Cape Verdean, it's been really
So what's
great.
you also wrote, or maybe you commented, I think John, your colleague, wrote the piece about how these business leaders, big boys from all over the world, are convening here using the World Cup as a backdrop.
Yes.
Is that like fun convening, or does actually anything get done that benefits this community?
No, it does. I mean, think about what happened with Scotland, right? The first, what do they call him? The first minister, John Sweeney, was here, right? And I start the story talking about how the World Cup is like Super Bowl and Davos rolled into one, right? You have this world's largest sporting event. Dignitaries and CEOs from around the world flying to, Foxborough to catch a game. And the first minister, he comes into town, I think came in Thursday night. Friday he was all business, in a suit and meeting with the governor and meeting with the mayor and, sitting at an AI roundtable. And then, by Saturday morning, he's in his kilt, he's in his jersey, he's at the fan festival, he's going to the game. And in between, you saw what happened. There was a, didn't Scotland and the mayor?
Sister City
the
thing.
Sister City, they got that done. And so I think there is a lot of business being done on the sidelines, which is great, because I mean, one thing I've learned from actually doing this newsletter is the European countries, they love Massachusetts, they love Boston.
I know.
I think that the Denmark ambassador is in town, and we're trying to meet up with him right now.
Well, it was a great story that people had heard this bad stuff about Trump and immigration. You're going to get hassled, and we're so mean and nasty here. And then some of these people came over and said, gee, I love these Americans. It's great to know that they were able to separate the American people from the politics of Donald Trump. But you ready to go? Move on here?
Do whatever you want.
So Wayne Budd, former U.S. attorney, Ralph Martin, former Suffolk County District Attorney, Andrew Cabral, who's a frequent guest on our show, former Sheriff of Suffolk County, all people of color, took to task Rachel Rollins, a woman of color, of course, who had to leave her job as U.S. Attorney after a scandal and somewhat disgrace. Jim and you did a great interview with her, and here is a clip from the interview with Rachel Rollins, kind of taking responsibility for her corruption.
I am embarrassed. I am shameful. I feel deep remorse for some of the behaviors I engaged in. But I promise you, I had emails from DOJ saying, you can do it, just don't do these 3 things. And why I met with people 8 times for 30 hours is because I really believed I hadn't made a mistake. Clearly, the OIG disagreed. And I do not challenge that at all.
But Wayne Budd, Martin, and Cabral took her to task.
It was a very tough op-ed that ran in the Globe. I mean, I feel like one of the most powerful lines is, because her running for Suffolk DA again is all about can the public trust her? Should she be given a second chance? And they argue, I'm quoting their op-ed, we submit that it is her dishonesty itself that makes her unsuitable for an office that requires unquestionable integrity. And if you think about up until then, there weren't that many people, outspoken about her running, except for maybe Dan Connolly, the former Suffolk DA. He's the only one been out there really criticizing her and saying that she should not run again. But the three of them together in this op-ed, it'll be tough for her. And I've been looking at her fundraising, and she hasn't raised any money this year. And meanwhile, the incumbent, Kevin Hayden, I think he's raised $80,000. Another candidate, Linda Champion, she's raised $50,000, but Rachel Rollins, $0.
By the way, let me say it for the second time. When Shirley and I were doing this, and I was doing the introduction to it, I mentioned Kevin Hayden, the incumbent, and I said other candidates, and I did not mention Linda Champion by name. I didn't mean it disrespectfully, and I should have named her, and apologies. And going forward, like today, we will make sure we do this. I just have to say, 80,000 to nothing is not a huge gap if you are intending to start fundraising. Right now it is.
Right, that's
true. Let me just say,
just starting.
This is all anecdotal. When Rollins was the DA, she had a core of support. I don't mean high-profile names, but people who really bought into her agenda. Remember the report that came out, showed how the recidivism rate went down when she decided the default was not to prosecute, not in all cases, but most, these more minor offenses.
Things like that.
I could be dead wrong, but I'm not sure she should be written off. And while I'm not here to give advice, I think the mistake she made with us is not acknowledging that she was wrong on any of these things.
Yeah, she didn't apologize. She did
say I'm ashamed or whatever we just played. I think her acknowledging, and I don't know if it's too late or not, acknowledging, come to think of it, on this thing, I made a mistake. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I think would help her a lot because the public is, look at who's president of the United States, and I'm surely not comparing them. The public is forgiving if you, even though he's never apologized, obviously, for anything. I think that is what was missing in our interview, and there's a lot of months, so I wouldn't write her off yet.
Okay, we only have a minute left here, Shirley, but I want to know, this is Jim's fault.
I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, over in Cambridge, I can't believe this.
Was it Jim's fault?
No, I had nothing to do with it.
They
proposed.
You order yourself a beer.
No, be nice first. You can carry a drink out on the street.
That was yesterday.
Okay, go ahead.
Now we find out that what they want to do is you order a beer, and you have to wait a half hour before you order another beer. They're going to patrol the drinking of what do you think of it? They have a lot of other rules too.
Right. I think they're just starting the process of having hearings on this. I think Cambridge officials were trying to quote unquote update the liquor license, liquor laws there, but I think they went too far. It's incredibly onerous. It's too bad because literally they got all this great press about this new social district that's come about during World Cup. It's good through the end of July. It feels like you're in Paris walking around parts of, Harvard
So what's
Square
supposed to, if this license commission thing were to happen, and it's not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
What do they put a timer in front of every customer?
I know.
That's right.
When the
buzzer goes off.
How do you enforce it? It's crazy. You can't serve like bottles of wine.
Yeah, you can't order a bottle of wine
before the closing.
What is that?
I don't know what it's all about. And we were in such a good place, right? We're talking about bringing back happy hour. We're talking about 3 extending last call, and then walking and walking around with a drink in hand during social districts, and now this. But I think my prediction is these rules will go away. They won't get implemented.
Very nice, Shirley Leung. Always great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Shirley Leung writes. What's the name of the column again? What is it? Power Play. This Power Play.
Yes.
Power Play for the Boston Globe is a great column. She writes a regular business column too. Okay, coming up after this break, we're going to talk with who are we talking with next? Juliette Kayyem. We're going to talk with her about the Iran negotiations. ICE at the. Am I wrong? Is it not Juliette Kayyem?
No, I'm talking to Jamie.
Oh, but you're motioning to me.
No, I'm sorry.
It is Juliette Kayyem, the Iran negotiations, ICE at the polls. She's next. I'm Marjorie Regan. He's Jim Brady. This is BPR, GBH, and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Coming up, you'll hear something on GBH News that just wouldn't be possible without listener support. So, while you're listening, consider pitching in $10 or $20 a month as a GBH sustainer and help make it all happen. Give at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you and MIT Federal Credit Union. Banking built on innovation, guided by real people. Memberships open to the public. More at mitfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA. And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back here at the library on Friday. We're going to be joined here at the library at noontime by Elizabeth Warren, who had been heading to the White House today to celebrate signing a bipartisan housing bill. Everybody was all excited about it. And then the president put the kibosh on it, said, no so-called reforms of the election, no housing bill. So there you go. But anyway, and we're on tape next week, so Jim can finally reach out to Harriet Heinemann,
Okay, fine.
his shot-putting girlfriend from years ago.
Okay, thank you
Hi,
for
Jim.
that. Joined out live at the library by Juliette Kayyem. She's former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, CNN's senior national security analyst, and she has a new Substack. It's called Early Warning with Juliette, as in Kayyem. She just launched last week. It's terrific. Early Warning with Juliette.substack.com. Hi, Juliette. Hello.
Hi. How are you? Hello,
We're good,
everyone.
we're good.
Thank you for the plug.
So you have put forth this very interesting thesis in Early Warning, your first Substack. I think it's your first one, right? Second one, okay.
I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, well, about Giorgia Meloni. She's the Prime Minister of Italy.
Yes.
Tell us your thesis.
I sort of watched this unfold over the weekend as well. They come back from the G7, all the leaders. Trump says like the weirdest thing on Italian newspaper, like she was all after me. She wanted to have a picture for her polling, whatever. He's not widely popular in Italy. And it was just one of those things that like you just sort of, unfortunately we've got acclimated as Americans to just be like, oh my God, he's so pathetic. And she just wouldn't let it sit. And it ended up being about a 72-hour tit for tat on Instagram, videos, social media, everything, where she says you're basically lying. And it ends over the course of this sort of 72 hours after some doubling down where he says she wanted it because I would increase her popularity in Italy. And she retorts back, don't worry about my polls, worry about yours. And I thought, finally, someone makes it personal. I mean, we live in this world where, they go low, we go high. The truth is, if we go low, they back down. And so I just absolutely loved it. And you're seeing it across the board. You're seeing it with the Iranians and their social media sort of undermining of Trump, which is just great. I'm not supporting the Iranians, but great fun considering we started an unnecessary war, killed lots of Iranians, and they won. You see it with the Vatican. You see it with France. And I think part of it, or the overall end of it, is just, look, foreign leaders can read polls too. And a wildly unpopular president, which we have to remember, despite everything that makes it seem like he has power because he's president, but he doesn't have power in terms of support. World leaders are acknowledging it and acting like the lame duck, wildly unpopular president he is.
A good example of the first point you made is you don't get anything in the long run out of being a Trump sycophant. One of the most embarrassing performers was by the guy who's leaving as prime minister. I think Keir Starmer is in the Oval Office like a little boy saying, nobody's ever had two whatever the hell it's called, audiences with the king. Here's your letter. You're getting the second one. And you see what he said about Keir Starmer when he says in advance, because he wants to usurp anybody's press. Keir Starmer is going to be stepping down tomorrow. And of course he was.
Sunday,
He trashes him. He's the loser. He is. And the fact that people are waking up, including some Republicans in the Senate, to the fact that maybe there's not as big a price to pay for standing up to him as there is for supporting him.
Yeah.
Is
especially
a wonderful
now
development.
that the primaries are over. And so
That's
yesterday,
a great point.
I
That's a
mean,
great
so
point.
no Republican can get primaried from the right. So what you're going to start to see is them starting to look at, is it really helpful for me in the general to be so aligned with this president? Now, most in the very, very red districts, most people have won are sort of true converts in any regard. But if you want to take over the House, the seats that are truly competitive are ones in which the sycophant attitude doesn't work. And I mean, look at the point of those who suck up to him cannot rely on him. And they have constituencies too that they have to, be accountable to. And I think that's what you're seeing is Maloney has it. You see it now in Britain where the guy who's likely to be prime minister is not tolerating Trump. So we'll see what happens.
Well, one exception may be, because I think all of Europe, you know much more about this than I, is beginning to move on. They're not denying that we're still a very powerful country, as you write, but our influence in the world is obviously on the way. Macron, and it practically had his hands all over him during this most recent visit thing. Except what?
So Macron makes Trump feel like he's needed. But Macron has done a series of things that Trump is very, very unhappy about.
So you think he's working them?
Oh, totally.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear
that. I mean, they also,
okay.
I mean, not only do they read the polls, they also see that he's easily... Look, he had Trump sign the agreement with Iran at Versailles. Like everyone, I'm not going to do the history lesson, but it is, Versailles is not well known for, it's
Marie Antoinette,
it's the acquiescence place, right, exactly. So it is a very, very, there was
dripping in gold.
There was no other place in France you could sign a piece of paper.
Who was the guy a couple of weeks ago who met with Trump? I'm embarrassed, I don't remember this. And Trump's chair was lower than his when they were sitting right next to each other. It was another world leader.
Oh, really?
And the other world leader's chair was normal height, and Trump's was like a little boy's chair, just to demean him. You know, speaking of, this all started about war stuff.
Yeah.
We asked John King this too. J.D. Vance says the Iranians in negotiations have agreed this week to have inspectors come in to look at the nuclear facilities. The Iranians say not true at all.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea what's going on?
I'd go with the Iranians.
But because Trump lies.
Trump lies. Vance is trying to get the nomination. Vance is trying to come in as the cleanup guy. He's also trying to sell a book. So first of all, I just have to remind people, there were inspectors in Iran before this war started. They were in during the Trump administration. The UN inspectors had access to the nuclear facilities. That stops during the war, obviously, and now they're trying to get back in. So so whatever is agreed to is going to be the status quo, not better, before the war. So, like, this is a victory. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I don't believe a word they say. In this regard, I wait for the Iranians and the Gulf states to validate what the Trump administration is telling us, because we're on round 8 of a ceasefire. I'm not lying to you. Round 8 of whatever this ceasefire that Israel decides they don't want to abide by, or the U.S. Says something that the Iranians don't view as true. Could you answer the question right now? Because I don't know if I could. What's the status of the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, I don't think anyone knows.
I don't know.
I mean, that's not a ceasefire. That, the ceasefires are not like, oh, let's see what it's like today. Like, ceasefires are, this is the status quo for the future. So we wait.
You know, one last thing about the war situation. All these intelligence people, I think it was in the Washington Post, said that the United States, really have to worry about Israel undercutting this whole deal. And they treated like it was intelligence fed, but like it was brilliant. Well, Netanyahu hates the deal. The Israelis hate the deal. Yeah. If they continue bombing southern Lebanon, allegedly go after Hezbollah, the deal is going to fall apart, which is their goal. So isn't it obvious? I mean, the question is, are you willing to upset Donald Trump, which it will, to do that? And the answer is, I think,
absolutely,
yes, right?
because he lied. I mean, I am of the school that Trump is an adult until told otherwise, and so he decided to go into war. But part of what convinced him to go to war was Netanyahu's strategy, which was it was going to be a short war. They were going to turn to Hezbollah in Lebanon and then sort of eradicate that access of Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, all the Iranian-supported terrorist groups. That doesn't happen. But Netanyahu still has that strategy for both political reasons and how he feels about Israel, and he's not going to be deterred by it. So, you can for early supporters of the war, who should have known better in terms of what this administration was capable or incapable of doing, which is waging a war that had a mission, that had a strategy, that had an exit plan, is shameful. I mean, including people in the Democratic Party. And look, I saw the primaries yesterday. The party is done. It is done with AIPAC. It is done with blindless allegiance to Israel. And the most Jewish district in New York City got rid of their incumbent and chose someone who was who has a great line, which is like the supporting Israel from terrorists and in defense of Israel, and not supporting, and I think he called it a genocide in Gaza, are compatible. I mean, those are not incompatible, and that's where the party is.
Well, also, we've mentioned this about a month ago, was the first poll in history where a plurality of Americans showed more empathy for the plight of the Palestinians than for Israelis, and that's totally a function of Trump and Netanyahu.
Yeah, but this is how democracy should work. I mean, I know there's like a lot of...
You also say if Israel did something like poured money into Gaza, poured food into Gaza, you hear these stories about people selling their children off into marriage because they're so broke, and rats in tents and all these horrible stories. I mean, they could certainly change people's attitude, maybe not for weaponry, but certainly their attitude, or knock off the West Bank stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you sort of unwind it, and there's a book coming out, we'll talk about it later because I read an early version of it. It's being released called Crossing the Red Line, Biden, Gaza, and the Biden Boys, or the Biden Team, which, as you know, I was very, very critical of publicly, which was not easy, is that they really could not separate in their minds, not just right after the horrible attack by Hamas in Israel, but like 6 months, 12 months later. And you kind of want to run, you go, what would the world have been like if the Jewish American groups and the White House had aligned in, instead of saying it's us versus them, you either support whatever Israel does or you're anti-Semitic, had actually tried to steer this. It's too late now. Netanyahu's too ingrained in the fabric of what Israel has become. It's going to take generations for Israel to look like what we had all hoped it would look like. But it's, as I've said, it's unforgivable.
Yeah, the West Bank stuff I was saying, I didn't say what the West Bank stuff is that people don't know.
Yeah,
that
and
there's going in
let's just be here. And Lebanon.
Yeah.
Like, where did that, now I know where that came from, but the idea that this is a mission by Israel against Hezbollah versus we're going to go into southern Lebanon and stay there is absurd. But part of this is the more that Netanyahu can distract from his failures as prime minister, the stronger, I guess, he feels. And
one of the other...
the West Bank thing is taking homes of Palestinians and bulldozing them and throwing people out.
I haven't thought of this in a while.
It's lawful.
Right after October 7th, on several occasions, you'll remember this, we had family members of those who were killed on October 7th. Yes. And I have to say, remember the husband of the woman who was held in captivity for 57 days. She was on 60 Minutes.
Remember,
she was here that
day. The child to him
to her husband because he ran faster. But I mean, the fact that that there's no time for that anymore because of the violence, the
and I think
limited
what you're seeing,
violence of Netanyahu is another. It's just it's horrible.
Yeah, and I think what I think the Iran. We started this off with Iran. I think what Iran really represents is that we talked about unreliable partners. Israel is an absolutely unreliable partner, and the idea that you would get in your head that the United States should be guided, should support this, under this I am where the vast majority of Democrats are. Why are we arming this country?
As you said, but let's not forget, Biden was giving offensive, not just defensive weapons, as you said. So it's a two-party deal.
Trust me. I know. This book, I just urge folks. I'm forgetting the author's name. We'll talk about it when it comes out. But it's called Crossing. It's about the Biden administration and the leadership in the Biden administration. Biden first, and unless we come to terms with it, the party will not appeal to what we clearly see going on in the primaries. We
well,
have
the
to
generational
listen.
thing too, I think, is what you see in polls is that younger Americans feel much less enamored of Israel at this point than older Americans.
That's right.
So can we end on an up note? Ocean monitoring.
I know.
This is actually really good, and it was a bipartisan good. Explain what was originally proposed by the administration and what now is the outcome.
And this is consistent with the sort of pushback. Like, why aren't we doing this more often? Because if you ask them to defend it, or if they're just exposed by it, it only took a couple of Republicans. What the Trump administration did is it ended a program that does ocean monitoring of waves, wave lanes, depths, currents, all sorts of things. Why does that matter? Matters for weather purposes also. But the belief was that the Trump administration ended the program because it would give less transparency for offshore drilling and all sorts of things that the business community wants to do in the oceans. You wouldn't detect a spill, for example. A bipartisan commitment to having the Trump administration reverse, and they did. We think. You never know, and they did. And that's all it takes. It is. You saw this with Blanche. Blanche gets the Attorney General Blanche gets a phone call from Trump saying, "I want subpoenas against the Washington Post and CNN." I think it was. Blanche abides because he's the president's lawyer and not America's lawyer. And there's pushback, and they take it away.
Okay, so Juliette, I'm going to be honest here.
What?
We are we're trying to be grown up in this conversation. But if you haven't been listening the last 2 days, the only thing Marjorie and I really care about is the reflecting pool.
Oh, my God.
And we only have a minute left, luckily, for the listeners. We want to know, is somebody semi-serious? Like, you have a low rent size, too, I should say.
Yeah, I do.
I mean that as a compliment. Are you as obsessed with the it's all we talk about, all we think about?
You know what it is.
What is it?
It's a metaphor.
Well, that's what we said yesterday.
That's
what
all
we said
it is.
yesterday.
It's a metaphor. It is something that wasn't broken. He wants to make better, and there's the Obama aspects to it. And his hatred of Obama. He makes it worse. He destroys it. Literally destroys it, and then blames everyone
I'm going to
else.
break. We're not supposed to say this until pledge. In the next pledge period at GBH, we will have Jim and Marjorie GBH waiters. So the people, for $120, they can buy the waiters, walk right into the reflecting
But then
pool.
they're doing 20 years. They're
That's
doing
right.
20 years after
Algae mugs. Algae
I
mugs.
like that.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I
think
like
so.
the way you think, Marjorie.
Thank you,
Juliette,
Jim.
it's good to see you. Thank
Bye,
you so
everyone.
much.
Thank
Speaking
you.
with Juliette Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, Faculty Chair, Homeland Security at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, CNN Senior National Security Analyst. Her new Substack is called Early Warning with Juliette Kayyem, just launched last week. Early Warning with Juliette.substack.com. Coming up after this quick break, Eddie Andelman, famous pioneer in sports talk radio. He just passed away. We're going to speak with two of his sons about his life and legacy. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie, and this is BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, you may have gone through the process of adopting a cat, dog, or even a child. But what about a bridge? The Bourne and Sagamore bridges are slated to be demolished in a few years, and the federal government is offering them up to anyone who wants them free of charge. So what's the catch? Find out on the Curiosity Desk. Today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you
and the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. committed to simplifying college planning for families over 45 years with trusted guidance, interactive tools, step-by-step videos, and more. MEFA.org. And Newport Mansions, presenting 11 historic properties and landscapes, including 7 national historic landmarks, tracing America's architectural and social development from the colonial era through the Gilded Age. NewportMansions.org.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live from the library, streaming youtube.com/GBHnews. We're back at the library on Friday. The politician who is, I think, the favorite politician of our next two guests, Senator Elizabeth Warren, was supposed to be headed to the White House today to celebrate the signing of the bipartisan housing affordability bill. Did not happen. She'll be with us, regardless, in person, at the library on Friday. In the Boston Globe's coverage of Eddie Andelman, the sports radio pioneer, was referred to as, quote, hilarious. I think it was Dan Shaughnessy's piece. Hilarious, kind, charitable, combustible, eternally devoted to his family, the Red Sox, the Celtics, the hot dog safari, and the Kowloon. A true legend. Andelman founded the Sports Huddle in '69, a call-in show with his friends where he celebrated and centered the average sports fan and raising millions for cystic fibrosis research along the way. Here is Andelman, as Shaughnessy wrote about this, in 1989, interviewing Red Sox great Wade Boggs, with whom he had a fairly tense relationship.
Are you tense?
I'm not tense at all.
You should. You're going to have a good time, you know that?
So are you.
So are you. We're joined now by 2 of his sons. We used to work with them. We'll talk about that, too. David and Michael. Michael's on Zoom. You probably know them from something called the Phantom Gourmet. They're here to celebrate the work of their groundbreaking father. And, of course, they asked us if we could spend time celebrating the victories of Zoran Mamdani last night. It's great to see both of you. Michael on Zoom. David, it's great to see you, too.
Yeah.
And we're really sorry to hear about your dad.
Yeah, and we sure hope the fabulous Judy that we heard so much about when we work with you is doing okay.
Well, my dad was one of a kind, and my mom is one of a kind, and we're better than I thought, really. I don't know if it's God or nature or the rituals that human beings have developed for thousands of years. I have to thank Boston. The outpouring of love and affection for our dad was really moving. I mean, he would have been embarrassed by it, but I would have forced him to enjoy it.
Michael, for the younger people in our audience, before you criticize me, which I'm sure is coming based upon history, tell us about your father and the role he played in arguably the most important, at least the most listened to radio in America. Tell us a little.
Well, you know, Eddie was Twitter before there was Twitter. He was an influencer. He was viral. And my mother used to say she married an insurance salesman but made him a star. And he started the Sports Huddle on a tiny radio station, and somehow 2 months later, 6 months later, they got promoted to WBZ Radio, where every Sunday night it became appointment listening. And when people were telling stories all week, you would think that Eddie was on the air last week, not 10 or 20 years ago. The memories were so vivid. The stories they were telling was like it was yesterday. And I wanted to tell one of Eddie's best jokes ever, because some people loved him, some people who liked hockey didn't like him. He said, someone said, Eddie, the Bruins are more popular than the Red Sox. And Eddie said, listen, if the Bobby Orr Big Bad Bruins were playing the Canadians in the Old Garden in 1970, and there was no beer, they'd only sell 3,000 tickets. But if the Boston Garden was just selling beer, it would sell out with Bruins.
That's a pretty good one.
When I try to describe him in his career, it's hard to imagine that when my dad started on the radio and I was a baby, if somebody talked about sports, they talked about for 9 hours whether the Red Sox should have bunted. Mm-hmm. My dad comes along and says, my wife thinks I'm an idiot. I just want to sit in my boxer shorts, watch the Celtics, and eat Chinese food. And the Red Sox refused to have onions at the concession stand. And he was interviewing pro wrestlers. And I have The story in Sports Illustrated, a year or two after he started on the radio, there's this big spread. There's this guy in Boston doing this whole new act nobody's ever even considered before.
You know, I'm so glad you said that because, Michael, for those of a certain age, when David just said what he said, it's sort of like they're saying, well, that's what everybody does in talk radio. It's not just sports and sports for the most part. Nobody was talking about this fun ancillary stuff that was about 3,000 times more entertaining.
And he just took everything from a different angle. And the only time David asked him, maybe 10 years ago, are you sad you're not on the air? And he said, I only wanted to be on during the Aaron Hernandez stuff with the Patriots. Because I said, and David said, why? And Eddie said, well, everyone's saying, you know, all these things, what a horrific thing it was, and it was. But Eddie said, I would have done the whole show. We're missing a tight end. He's really important. We got to figure out how to break him out of jail.
That is horrible. We're talking to Michael and David Andelman. Their brother Dan, by the way. They're three brothers, three sons of the fabulous Judy and Eddie Andelman. Dan wasn't able to be here today.
So, David, I mentioned before and on the air that, you know, your fabulous Judy and how you used to talk about how she never cooked a meal in 50 years, which is why you were always at the Kowloon. So when you were little kids at the Kowloon with your dad...
No, excuse me. We bumped into the whole family at the Golden Temple more than once, by the way, in Brookline.
That's right. The Golden Temple, another great legendary Chinese restaurant. I mean, did people come over to the table and start engaging with your father? Could you have a meal in peace, or what was it like?
Well, I remember being a little kid and going to the Kowloon, and I remember my dad saying, we're going to give your mom the night off tonight. She won't have to cook. She won't have to clean. That meant that I was going to spend time with my brothers, meant I was going to spend time with my parents, eat great food. And I think that's where my love of restaurants began. But to this day, when I pick up the phone and it's Bobby Long, I say, hey, Cousin Bobby. He says, hi, Cousin David.
How's the new joint, by the way?
It's on fire.
We're talking about Kowloon, by the way. Go ahead.
It's on fire. If you don't know, the Wongs own the famous Kowloon, and I've been a huge advocate of Revere Beach my whole life. I have a place there, even though I live in Brookline. My grandfather, my dad's dad, used to work at the track. At that time, there was no calculators, and he was real good with numbers. So and my dad used to do this joke on the air. My ultimate fantasy would be to own an apartment above Kowloon, and when I get hungry, I'll slide down in a fireman's pole. And I called him a couple months ago, Dad, your dream has come true. I can now walk to Kowloon, but I never have seen so much interest in a restaurant. I've been doing this for 33 years, and everybody I run into, including fancy scientists, rich people from Europe, all they want to know is when's Kowloon opening?
So Michael, go ahead, Margaret.
I was just going to say, we used to do a bit together on the radio. The three Andelman...
It wasn't a bit. It was an hour on the radio every Friday.
Okay, the three Andelman brothers, Jim and I, I felt a little left out of those conversations, I must say. It was like the Irish Catholic girl and 3-4 bar mitzvah comparisons, the 4 Jewish guys.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that. So what'd you think of those halcyon days, Michael, when we were all on WTKK
Oh, yeah, I really want to hear this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, the things I'm proud about in my life are our business, my family, and the fact that I got to call you two colleagues for 2 years.
Oh,
it was very. It was. Those were such fun times, Jim and Marjorie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm still in mourning right now. I have to be, appreciative of life.
I'm suspicious of that. I'm suspicious of that.
Let me follow up on that, Michael.
Yeah.
Is your father, we've established, you didn't need us, but was one of the true pioneers in the radio industry. How did he feel? I know he loved the three of you. How did he feel that you guys were such an abject failure on the radio? How did he react to that,
That's not
Michael?
true.
That was one of the last conversations we had before we disappointed him. He was so proud of us, and we were so proud of him. But we did have a funny conversation right before he passed when we were he's like, listen, let's talk about the funeral. Let's talk about the Shiva house, which in most families I think would be morbid, but it was pretty common to us. And he said, I want to have fun. And then the Shiva house had Kowloon, a hot dog stand in the driveway.
Oh.
And it had fried chicken from Summer Shack. And after the funeral, a lot of our friends and family said, this was the best funeral ever, which Eddie would have been smiling ear to ear because that's who he was. He was different and he was loving and he was just a wild, different kind of father and radio host. And a few of my friends told their parents afterwards, we have to spend more time together or be, you have to be funnier because I have nothing to say at your funeral like the Andelman brothers did.
Ernie Bach is a close friend. He called me afterward and he said, I don't know if I should tell you this. That was sad, but I was having a really good time.
Before you guys go, one thing we've left out, talk about the hot dog safari and cystic fibrosis and what your father did.
Well, my dad was so thankful that he married my brother and that he had
He married your brother?
Married my mother.
Oh, sorry.
Again, Jim, we're in mourning. Give us a little slack here.
Excuse me.
And he was so thankful that his boys were healthy. So he decided to adopt cystic fibrosis as a cause. He invented this event called Hot Dog Safari, which everybody, including Joe O'Donnell, thought was the stupidest idea he ever heard. Years later, it raised millions of dollars. Tens of thousands of people used to go to it. And I used to watch him work himself literally sick. The phone would ring in our house, and he'd say, where are you? And he had tickets in the trunk of his car, and he would go sell 4 tickets for $10. He'd go to restaurants, and my dad never said, could you please do this? He would say, I need you to put up this poster in the front hall. So I was accepting an award on his behalf for cystic fibrosis a few years ago, and Frank DeFord, who my father and I just worshiped.
Explain who he was. A lot of young people may not know.
Frank DeFord was a great sports writer, but he could do radio, TV, movies. He was an absolute genius. He was very tight with my father. And he's introducing me, and he says, I know every chapter of cystic fibrosis wants us to do Hot Dog Safari in every market in the country. I'm going to tell you for the 10,000th time, it will never work. There's only one Eddie Andelman. And he was right.
Hey, you guys, we mourn his loss, too. He was spectacular. He changed the business and obviously had a huge impact on zillions of lives. And we missed you, sort of, too, actually. So maybe every 20 years like this is probably a good thing, don't you think?
Yeah.
Hey.
Jim, he loved Boston sports. He loved raising money for the Joey Fund. He loved his family. And he really didn't like you much.
By the way, I was going to say that, but I thought it was in poor taste. Okay. So I'm glad you did.
Okay.
Michael and David, it's great to see you both. And say hi to your mom and your brother. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kind words.
And thanks for your dad, who was an inspiration, legendary guy, an inspiration to us all. We're speaking with Dave and Mike Andelman, sons of the legendary sports talk radio host Eddie Andelman. Thanks again for coming in. Coming up after this quick break, it is summer swim season, but there are apparent perils everywhere you dip your toes. Whether there's sharks in the ocean or algae in the pool, we're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on your preferred summer swimming hole. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the BPL, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The World Cup's energy is everywhere. The game is global, but this experience is local. GBH News is following how the world's biggest tournament plays out right in front of us.
I'm not going to have space enough for everybody. That's I tell you.
We've never had a World Cup in our lifetime, so it's good to be here in America. They just do it big, do it big.
Get all the latest at gbhnews.org/World Cup.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Cape Playhouse in Dennis Village. Fairy tale classics come to life in the Cape Playhouse premiere of Into the Woods, Stephen Sondheim's Tony Award-winning musical. Tickets for Into the Woods at capeplayhouse.com. And Rogers Fish Company, founded by Roger Berkowitz, proud supporter of the Catching the Codfather podcast with Ian Koss. Episodes available on gbhnews.org or wherever you get your podcasts. More at rogersfishcompany.com.
Welcome back to BPR 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library on Friday. Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, will join us at noon in person for a half hour from noon to 12:30. And we will not be live all of next week, where it's our July 4th vacation week. So no library next week, and we return on July 6th. It's summer, it's in the 80s, and that means it's officially swim season, but there are apparent perils everywhere you dip your toes, whether it's sharks in the sea, algae in the reflecting pool, or pee in your backyard pool. The lines are open at 877-301-8970. Call or text. What's your preferred swimming location? Is it a pool? Is it a lake? Is it the bay? Is it the ocean? Where do you swim and why? Every day, of course, Marjorie wants to talk about the reflecting pool.
I do.
We decided we couldn't do it again today, so we have a tangential kind of thing coming at it from a different angle. If you're on the national seashore of Cape Cod, where we both spend time, well, it's true, you have sharks to contend with, or at least a threat of shark.
Yep.
Or, on the lakeside, it's what Marjorie talks about all the time. Do you say cyanobacteria? Is that how you say it?
Cyanobacteria.
Cyanobacteria.
Yeah.
And by the way, some
amoebas,
brain amoeba. We'll get to that. Let me just get this out here.
Up your nose.
Okay, no. Well, then just don't, hold your nose. In any case, there is pee in most in-ground pools. And if you're considering taking a dip, let's say in the nation's capital, obviously you know what the problem is there. So and explain why, where do you go for a dip in 2026, considering everywhere you look, there is some sort of peril? The number is 877-301-8970. Here's my view, Marjorie.
Yes.
As I said, I won't say it more times because you don't like this.
Okay.
In-ground pools, a lot of pee, generally. I don't like that. I'm sorry, I don't. Lakes, you have the brain amoeba.
The brain amoeba.
Which you'll explain in a minute. And
I didn't
snakes.
know this existed.
Oceans, you get to the beaches on Cape Cod, and the first thing you see is a huge graphic of a shark. I mean, seriously, I want to go in that water. The bayside, they can swim in there. So my choice of all those is a shower. That's essentially what I do.
Okay.
Do you swim?
Yes, I do.
Where do you go swimming?
Well, I swam in the lake.
I thought it's got cyanobacteria.
Well, it's got cyanobacteria at the moment, but we hope it goes away. I did not know, though, about this amoeba thing. It travels up your nose and into your brain, so you're supposed to hold your nose when you jump in the water and make sure you don't. Of course, if you jump in the water without holding, you're supposed to blow out, so the amoebas can't come up. Yeah, that's how you keep the water from going up your nose. You blow out when you hit the water.
I had no idea.
Well, anyway, but I didn't know about this. But I love lakes. It's less ocean
there's
waves.
Snakes in most lakes.
Well, they're at the bottom, Jim. They're at the bottom.
Well,
eels,
they can swim
eels,
up
we call
also.
They don't swim up. They stay at the bottom. The eels are at the bottom. There are muskrats. There are snapping turtles. But there are no sharks in the lakes. The ocean is great. I mean, the ocean is great. It's salty.
It's not great. It's not great.
Well,
it's
you
not
should be
great.
at Craigville Beach.
It's
we don't
frightening.
we don't have any sharks in Craigville Beach. They're all over the other side of the Cape. But I'm worried they're going to infiltrate the bay. I always mixed up. The ocean side is where the Cape Cod National Seashore is. The bay side is where I am, I think. Anyway, I think that's it.
By the way, anonymous texter says, and I want to assure them, please don't put a picture up of that reflecting pool guy. My dog hates it. It's very hard to take. Thank you very much.
By the way, there is a new development that
What is it?
President Trump is threatening lawsuits against ABC Network.
This is unbelievable.
Because they reported on his mess at the reflecting pool, but they haven't reported. He claims that Obama and Biden spent millions on fixing up the pool.
$100 million he wants.
Yeah, of course it isn't true. Obama did spend $35 million because the thing has been in trouble for about
Okay, we're
decades.
not talking about the reflecting pool.
Biden didn't spend any money at all, but nonetheless, Trump is threatening to sue ABC over their reporting on the reflecting pool, which obviously he's very upset about. Did you read about these plunge pools? These look great.
These are little things where you just dip yourself.
Yeah, they're kind of expensive. They're like $40,000. So that's a lot of money.
That's kind of expensive.
And they're only 7 by 13 feet. But
yeah. What's your point?
Well, I don't know. They look really nice. If you got $40,000 to spend.
Do you like swimming pools?
No, I don't. I don't like the chlorine.
You know what the problem is? There are no horrible animals in a pool, which appeals to me.
That's right.
The problem is when you go to the Cape, for example, which we both do in the summer, and you swim in a pool, don't you feel like you're doing something wrong? I mean, you're on the Cape, and there's a bay.
Yeah.
There are lakes.
I've never swum
There's
in a
the
pool.
ocean.
When I'm at the Cape.
I have.
Yeah, they have natural pools, Jim. This is a pool that doesn't use chlorine and instead relies on a biological process to clarify the water using what they call a regeneration zone, whatever that means. Anyway, 877-301-8970. In the summertime where it's hot, where do you want to swim? Do you want to swim in the ocean? Do you want to swim in a lake or pond? Do you want to go dip your little foot into the reflecting pond? But watch out, you might get arrested if you do that and face 10 years in prison. 877-301-8970 is the number.
So Van Owen, I believe, is on YouTube. Walden Pond is a local treasure if you're looking for a nice place to visit or swim. Capital letters, this is what I was going to say. It's always crowded in the summer, but well worth it. You ever been to Walden Pond?
I have.
The problem with Walden Pond is the bottom is like a mushy, I don't like the mushy
well, it's like
bottom
the, it's the moss and the seaweed down there.
And by the way, this is for you. This is according to the Telegraph through Drudge.
Yep.
Donald Trump, thank God for this, has added AI security cameras
yes.
and is deploying the National Guard soldiers to patrol the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool after his botched renovation. The new cameras installed by Trump on Tuesday feature real-time tracking, intrusion detection, HD monitoring, strobe lights, automatic spotlights, and a loud speaker.
It's not just the National Guard, though. It's also the U.S. Marshals
I hope so.
And the Park Police. They're all there. And this whole story about the reflecting pool that the New York Times reported on, every time they say what the president says about the reflecting pool, they have to say, there is no evidence that what he says is true, like about the vandals with knives in the dark of night climbing into the pool and cutting this 350-foot section of this pool. There's no, he calls them razor blade slashes. They keep pointing out there's no evidence of this. But nonetheless, we have all these police soldiers, and it's become a big tourist attraction
because of
in
this.
Washington, which is really annoying him too. And I must admit, I love the fact that it annoys him. 877-301-8970. Where do you swim? I'm not on the bay side at Craigville Beach.
Oh, you're not?
No, I always get that mixed up.
Okay, let's take some
what
calls.
side am I on?
It's like a call-in
the ocean
show.
side, I guess.
This is a call-in show, Margaret.
Okay, Robert in Dartmouth. Thank you for
Robert.
calling.
Where do you swim?
Anywhere it's wet.
Well, that's
you're not picky.
That's good.
And I'll swim on the outer Cape if there's surf. I'll swim in ponds, rivers. I've done it all.
How about South Boston?
Just got to be wet.
Have you been? Now I know you're calling from Dartmouth. Have you been in South Boston? I mean, some days you feel like you can swim in South Boston. Some days you think, I don't know. Doesn't look quite. The bottom feels a little funny in South Boston.
I'm sure
too,
Robert has swum.
Supposedly, it's very clean there most of the time.
Let me tell you a story. There's a surf spot in Santa Cruz called Sewer Point. I've surfed there.
You have?
And it's called Sewer Point because it's near sewage. Is that why?
Yeah, the takeoff point is marked by where little bits of stuff come to the surface.
That's fabulous.
Oh, good.
I'll meet you there tomorrow morning, Robert. Thank you for your non-discriminating approach to swimming kind of thing. Robert, thank you so much for the call. How do you feel about a jacuzzi?
I have a friend who has a hot tub. I love that.
But how do you feel if you go to a jacuzzi like in a gym?
No, I don't like that.
Do you want to be in it with people you don't know?
Well, it's like the chlorine. If you get, I wear a lot of silver jewelry. It all
you
turns.
Do?
Yeah, it all turns colors.
Well, you know what you can do?
And
I know.
You can smell the
you're
chlorine.
sitting down. You can take it off.
You can take
it off. And put it on the side.
Okay,
and then put it back on.
Well, it's a sign that maybe your skin shouldn't be in there for too long either, Jim. That's my point. Apparently, Jim likes Water Whiz. Do you like Water Whiz, Jim?
We talked. Isn't Water Whiz the place in New Hampshire or the Cape?
I think Water Whiz is down the Cape. Water Country's in
Wareham.
New Hampshire.
Water
Country.
Whiz
I've
is
been
like
to
a
the
water
both.
park.
Been to the both. Yep, it's really great.
By the way,
love it.
I say this in the nicest way because I don't want to discourage any business from doing well. Is that like a disease waiting to happen? I'm serious. I know you take it. Isn't it your kid who loves Water Whiz? Jamie's little boy loves Water Whiz. I mean, really.
Yeah. It's very chlorinated at Water Whiz and Water
fine.
Country.
Dylan.
Hi, Dylan in Charlestown. What do you think? Oh, we should ask Dylan if he swims in South Boston.
Hey, Dylan.
Or
how
Charlestown,
are you?
for that matter. What do you think, Dylan? Is Dylan there?
He doesn't think anything, apparently.
Okay. We don't know where Dylan goes swimming. Bill
We'll get
Weld,
back
the
to
former
Dylan.
governor,
Put him on
remember
hold.
when he dove into the Charles River to prove that it was clean enough to swim?
Well, I think he may have had a few before
No,
he did
there's
that.
some place
No?
I wouldn't want to be sticking my toes in.
Well, I think there are certain days of the year you can swim in the
Well,
Charles
it's like
River.
South Boston. As long as things are going okay at the Deer Island sewage treatment plant, you should be okay.
We should be clear, by the way, because I don't want to give misleading information. While there are certain days of the year I'm pretty sure you can swim in the Charles, those who have never been seen again. So, no, I just want to give the full picture to people.
They were in a panic. Remember when Weld dove in?
Yeah, I remember.
Took him a while to come
He
back
had his
up.
clothes on.
And people were concerned that he was not going to
Clothes
reemerge.
on.
And then he finally did reemerge.
Alyssa, you're in Brookline.
Hi,
What's
Alyssa.
your deal?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
My first call.
Oh, we love that. Thank you.
I am like that previous caller, which is I would swim anywhere, and being in the summer without a place to swim just seems horrible to me. And I've been swimming in lakes, in a lake near Brookline, and just like you guys have been talking about, it's increasingly becoming, it's closed frequently because of the heat and the algae and the bacteria.
What lake,
And,
Alyssa?
Crystal Lake.
Oh, Crystal Lake. That's in Newton?
It's in Newton, right?
Yeah,
right.
that's supposed to be really nice.
However,
yeah,
it's beautiful. It used to not be allowed for the public to swim in other areas, but now it's allowed. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I have lived in Brookline many years. I grew up in Brookline. I have always been appalled that the town of Brookline, with a population of 63,000, is one of two municipalities in Greater Boston that does not have any place for people to swim.
Is that
outdoors.
true? Do you know that? Marjorie
Well, there
obviously lives in
is
Brookline.
at the high school. There's pools, but they're inside.
Outdoors. There's no
outdoor. You're right. There's no outdoor
That
pool.
is horrible.
That's a great point.
Campers.
Yep.
Campers in Brookline. They have no place to swim. There's a lot of people in Brookline who have homes on the Cape, as probably you two have.
I don't. Marjorie
And-
does.
I do.
No. Oh.
My
Well,
parents.
there's summer homes. A lot of people go to summer homes. They have their pools in the backyard. But there's a very large percentage of people in Brookline who don't have those assets.
Alyssa, don't go away. Excellent first call. How do you deal with the brain amoeba? How do you
That's right.
How
Did
do
you
you
even
fend
know
them
that?
off?
I didn't even know that.
Well, now you do. How
I
do you
do.
deal with that?
Well, that's one of the reasons that I feel like Brookline needs a pool, because I am less comfortable now swimming in a lake.
Well-
However, I do just want to mention, we have a feasibility study that is currently being
Looked at.
implemented.
Oh.
We've had warrant articles. I, together with some people, have filed warrant articles trying
Whoa.
to get an outdoor pool for 5 years, and we finally have a feasibility study coming. However, if there are people who live in Brookline who are
Marjorie.
listening to your show
Marjorie.
who think that it's time for people in Brookline to have an outdoor pool, please send emails to the select board and let them know that you are interested in finally having an outdoor pool.
Can I tell you, that was one of the most comprehensive first calls
was.
in the history of radio. Alyssa,
There is the
good luck with your campaign, and
Boston
thank you for the call.
pool, which is on the border of Brookline and Cleveland Circle. There's a big Boston pool there.
Is that in Brookline?
Well, no, it's in Brighton, I guess, but it's like
Okay.
a 2-minute walk over
Let's
the
get down to
Brookline
brass
line.
tacks. Are you going to be joining Alyssa's campaign? Yes or no?
I
Yes or no?
right after they give you a visitor's pass, so when your elderly grandmother comes to visit you,
park on the street?
They can park on the street for one night.
Why don't you join forces with Alyssa?
Well,
you
I've
do
been
both things.
my crusade, Jim, is a visitors parking.
What have you done to advance your
I gave a
crusade?
talk about it when we were in front of all the people from the Brookline News. I said,
Oh,
it's
you
going to be a
did. That's
Pulitzer
true.
Prize.
You did.
Pulitzer Prize. Cambridge lets you have a overnight parking
Marjorie
thing
did.
for visitors. Boston lets you have one.
Yeah.
What is wrong with Brookline? That is my crusade in
You
Brookline.
know what's wrong with Brookline?
What's wrong with Brookline?
If Alyssa wins, you're going to brain amoeba in Brookline. That's what's wrong with Brookline. Let's go to Kevin in Brookline. Kevin, are you part of Alyssa's thing or not?
No, I was going to echo what Marjorie just said, is that you can absolutely swim in the MDC pool in Cleveland Circle, which I've been swimming in since I was a little kid.
Oh.
And it's much better now. It's clean, it's free, parking is easy, it's a short walk, and my kids and I spend the whole summer in there. If we can't make it to Walden Pond, we make it right into that pool.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the problems for
Kevin.
Alyssa's crusade is that there's one like 2 minutes over the Brookline line.
Kevin, are you the Kevin we know?
I am indeed, and it's great to hear from you and talk to you, and I hope that you have a great summer ahead. I haven't called in a while because I've been taking a mental break from all our
Oh, good.
It's so depressing.
Well, we are thrilled to hear from you. We're big fans of yours, Kevin. Kevin, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Do you know that Massachusetts has a lot of pools in it? And one of the reasons we do is because Massachusetts is a rich state. But it doesn't add any value.
No, you didn't go far enough. I was stunned by that. I'm so good. The 6th most pools per capita of any state in the country.
That's right.
I was shocked.
We're pooled up.
We are pooled up.
Yeah, we're pooled up. But the idea that it's going to add a lot of value to your property is not necessarily true. And also, in-ground pools are really
who said
a lot.
That?
In the same story that you read about all the pools we have in Massachusetts. In-ground pools with vinyl inserts start around $75,000. That's a lot. And custom gunite pools, I don't even know what that means.
Nor do I.
Start at $150,000 and up, but it's not necessarily going to add value to your property. I like these little plunge pools, Jim. They're small, they're cute, they
You don't even know what they are. You ever been in a plunge
They're
pool?
small. No, I haven't. But
you ever seen
look,
one? You ever seen
I've
one?
seen pictures of them.
No,
They
that
look very
doesn't
nice.
count. You haven't seen them.
And there's no chlorine in there either.
Nor any brain amoebas.
877.
By the way, are you not worried? We didn't know about brain
I'm very
amoeba
worried
this
about
morning.
the brain amoebas. I was
Isn't
worried
that-
enough about
not
the cyanobacteria.
Amoebas. Whatever they are. Can't even
Amoeba.
say it.
Amoeba. Don in Charlestown, thank you for calling.
Don, what's up?
Hi, good afternoon.
And to
Hi,
you.
I was doing the Globe crossword this morning.
Yeah.
One across was pond growth,
No.
and the answer was algae.
There you go.
No, is that true?
It's taken over America,
Yeah,
John.
That made my day.
Oh, made ours too.
Nobody can stop talking about the algae that's taken over the
Thank you,
reflecting
Don.
pool. This gooey stuff there, this oily slick there.
What does that sound even mean?
I don't know. Are we talking to Edgar B. Hurt III?
No,
I'm here.
I'm
he's
sorry,
here.
Edgar. It's
No,
Margary's
you're all
fault.
right.
Yeah,
not mine.
okay.
Good.
I don't want to put you in the spot because we were talking about algae yesterday, but we'll ask you our other question. Are you an ocean man?
Absolutely.
A lake man?
Ocean, lake, pond, river. I will swim in it. I've been in the Charles. I've swum in the Charles thrice.
You
Twice-
have?
Yeah, twice legally and once, let's say, accidentally. Maybe
Really?
there were some adult beverages involved.
Did
But
you-
yeah, I've been in the Charles.
Did
yeah.
you have any open sores at the time?
I did not have any open sores at the time, and I wore
Thank God.
shoes, which I recommend if you ever go in the Charles, because if your feet touch the bottom there, that's where the real growth
Hey,
is.
Yeah,
when
that's
are you
that's very true.
When are you doing a segment on brain amoeba?
Okay.
Well, Jim, if you go to the Curiosity Desk landing page and just pop your question into our handy-dandy form, maybe
That's
we
right.
can take that on as one
I'm
of our
gonna
next
do it
Edgar,
right
questions,
now.
Jim.
So let's get back to your falling into the Charles after one
yeah.
too many
Well, I
adult
mean, it's
beverages.
pretty obvious.
What part of the Charles was this, Edgar?
He doesn't remember.
Yeah, that's I don't remember. That's true. Listen, I'm not afraid of the Charles, and I'll tell you why. I grew up in coal country in Pennsylvania, and the rivers and the creeks and the streams that we
love
were swimming
creek.
in there in coal country, I'm sure I was already exposed to every kind of amoeba you could possibly
That's
be exposed
probably a
to.
good point.
Yeah.
Were they black from the coal dust?
They were like a rusty orange, I
Oh
would
no,
say.
rusty orange. That's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Pretty gross.
By the way, RFK Jr. is pro brain amoeba, I should
Absolutely.
say. What's your show thing? What are you doing?
So esteemed Curiosity Desk producer and BPR producer Hannah Loss is
I know who
making
she
her
is.
Curiosity Desk debut.
No.
Yeah, she's
Great.
She's done some great reporting into a forgotten symbol of the American Revolution called the Liberty Tree, and a little investigation to find out if these roots that they have at the Massachusetts Historical Society are in fact the roots of the original Liberty Tree.
Wow.
That's going to be a good
Is she
one.
working on the story about the 12 eggs in a pack?
She is also on the 12 eggs thing,
Okay,
but we had
fine.
to get to the bottom of the Liberty Tree thing before the 250th.
Fair enough. We'll be listening. Edgar B. Hurrick III
Edgar B.
coming
Hurrick,
up right
thank you
after
very
us.
much.
And you mentioned that Jared has this great music coming up at 2
Yes,
o'clock.
right here to the percussionist and composer Reynaliz Herrera uses a bicycle as a percussive instrument. It's going to be pretty cool. Right here at the library. You
2 o'clock.
You can hear it, but you can watch it, which is even better. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Guy, Patrick Lally, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, our security team, Darius and Derek, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Tomorrow we're going to have Federal Judge Nancy Gertner here, Media Maven Sue O'Connell, Elon Stavins of Amherst College, and Sail Boston's Dusty Rhodes, plus a special musical performance from One Long Earring with a satirical ode to feminist folk bands.
I saw One Long Earring last year. It was spectacular,
Fantastic.
and it's a revised edition coming.
Okay, after us, Curiosity Desk, and then Jared Bowen, The Culture Show. I'm Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browning.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Revolve Dance Project, presenting Revolutions, a celebration of live music and dance with original compositions and choreography. Sunday, June 28th at 2 and 6 at the Strand Theater in Providence. Ticket info at revolvedanceproject.com. And Beacon Circle patron Nancy L. Donahue, proud to support GBH 89.7 and the commitment to local, national, and global journalism that inspires, engages, and supports diversity in the community.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar V. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, it's become a forgotten symbol of our nation's revolution. The Liberty Tree, located at the edge of present-day Chinatown, was a spot where patriots and independence-minded colonists would convene and, yes, protest. Even after the British Army chopped it down, the tree's roots and the ideas that had sprung up around it persevered. And it turns out we actually have some of those original roots of the Liberty Tree. At least we think. After that, we've got a bridge to sell you. No, really. Actually, there are 2 historic bridges, and they are free to anyone who wants them. The Bourne and Sagamore are up for adoption until the end of the week. Hope you can find a U-Haul big enough. And we welcome back a friend of the show, librarian by day, Abigail Adams by night. This hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. In a major test of his political power, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani went 3 for 3 in last night's Democratic primaries. Steve Kestenbaum reports the outcome will move the New York congressional delegation further to the left.
Mayor Mamdani flexed his muscles while stumping for his picks, and it paid off in a big way. All 3 candidates he backed won their primary races. In one upset, 5-term Democratic Congressman Adriano Espaillat went down in a narrow loss to Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier.
Today we make it clear. The politics of the past ends today.
Mamdani's friend, former New York Comptroller Brad Lander, defeated incumbent Representative Dan Goldman by a wide margin. With New York leaning heavily blue, it means more Democratic socialists will likely head to Congress. For NPR News, I'm Steve Kastenbaum in New York.
Congress, on a bipartisan basis, approved a bill last night designed to make housing more affordable. President Trump had been scheduled to sign the bill into law today, but hours before the ceremony, the president said he will not sign the bill. That first, Congress must pass the Save America Act, legislation to impose new federal rules on elections that under the Constitution are run by the states. House Speaker Mike Johnson wants Trump's bill to pass, but he says that's going to be a challenge in the Senate.
He's laser focused on Save America Act, as most common sense Americans are. The only path, I think, to get that done, because you're never going to get 7 Democrats to join 53 Republicans in the Senate to do that. They will not do it. Chuck Schumer will never vote for that or release any Democrat to do it. You have to put it on a reconciliation bill.
Reconciliation allows Congress to pass legislation on some matters with only a majority vote to avoid a filibuster in the Senate. A watchdog group is calling for the state of New York to investigate crisis pregnancy centers, which it accuses of lying to potential patients. NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin reports.
The Campaign for Accountability, a nonprofit watchdog group, sent a letter this week to New York Attorney General Letitia James. Michelle Cooper-Smith is the group's executive director.
Crisis pregnancy centers appear to lie to
potential clients about their ability to actually diagnose problematic pregnancies like ectopic pregnancies.
Her letter asks the AG's office to investigate instances of this in New York. Surprisingly, a lawyer who represents crisis pregnancy centers agrees in part. Here's Ann O'Connor of the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates in a webinar last year.
Do not advertise we can rule out an ectopic because it is near impossible.
The group did not respond to NPR's multiple requests for comment. Selena Simmons-Duffin, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News in Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston taxis will be able to pick up people who request Uber and Lyft rides under a new one-year pilot program announced by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu yesterday. GBH's Diana Dame has the details.
Customers who get a cab through a rideshare app will still see the cost up front on their phones instead of the typical taxi fare structure. City officials say the goal of the pilot is to give people more options to hail a taxi and to allow licensed taxis to participate in meeting the demand for trips requested through Uber and Lyft. Wu said the pilot will also help cab drivers to earn more while reducing wait times for passengers. The program excludes taxi trips to Boston's Logan Airport and allows the Hackney division to make exceptions during some special events in the city. Diana Dame, GBH News.
Free meals, thanks to Worcester Public Schools for children and teens in that city, have returned for the summer. The Worcester Guardian reports the Free Eats program began yesterday, runs through August 21st at sites across the city. The Summer Eats program is a statewide initiative designed to help families access nutritious food while school is not in session. In Worcester, there's no registration or ID or paperwork required. However, the meals must be eaten on site. A complete list of Worcester meal sites and service times is available on the city's Summer Eats webpage. In sports, Red Sox wrap up their series with the Rockies in Colorado this afternoon, 3:10 start. 6 World Cup soccer games on tap today. The first 2 start at 3 p.m., the last 2 at 8. Sunny, low 80s. We're at 80 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their dining and entertainment card, Savor. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I am Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Why don't you join us there? All right, let's go back in time, a few decades before the American Revolution. I want you to picture a massive elm tree. Now, it looks a lot like an elm tree would look today, but it's old, right? It's got nice branches, leaves for shade. This one in particular would become a meeting place for early Bostonians and later the place for patriotic protests. It eventually earned a name, the Liberty Tree. Even after British troops chopped it down, its roots remained, both figuratively and, yes, literally too. For over a century now, the Massachusetts Historical Society has had a tiny sample of what has been presumed to be the roots of this actual real Liberty Tree. Well, Curiosity Desk producer Hannah Loss has been reporting on some investigative forensic work to learn if the spindle of roots are, in fact, real remnants of the mythic Liberty Tree. She joins us now in studio, and with her is plant detective Ned Friedman, who also moonlights as the director of Harvard University's Arnold Arboretum. Hannah, Ned, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Hi.
Hey. Great to have you both. So let's we'll talk about the investigation into these roots in a moment, but I want to talk about the Liberty Tree itself, because I feel like this is one of these kind of symbolic, sort of important things during the American Revolution that is maybe less remembered today than a lot of them. I don't hear a ton about the Liberty Tree. So what was the Liberty Tree?
Yeah, I had never heard of the Liberty Tree before this story.
Ned, have you known about the Liberty Tree before?
Only when the Historical Society contacted me.
So sort of new to all of us. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that suggests that it's not as widely known.
I feel better about that.
Good.
But yeah, it was a real tree, as you said. And, you think about like, where do we meet up today? How do we, find our people? And, what was there? There were trees, there were buildings, and the tree, it just became a place to meet in early Boston. I think because it was outside of the city, and
presumably recognized. But where? So where exactly was it located?
Near the Boston Neck. So I think you've talked about on this show how a lot of Boston is filled in, and the Neck at the time, just south of the town of Boston, where we think of like the financial district. And it was on Washington and Essex Streets, although at the time I think it was Orange and Essex, in the yard or the land of this guy named John Eliot. He was a deacon, stationer. And it grew, and I think in a grove. There's some debate over whether it was planted or if it had been growing there when colonists arrived.
Okay.
So it offered some shade in a sort of maybe a desolate part of the city.
And I can pipe in the American elm. If it is the American elm, and it was, let's say, whether it was planted or it just was native here and growing, has a really distinctive shape. It's a beautiful tree that looks like a vase. And we don't have many of them around anymore because Dutch elm disease.
We've talked about this on the show. This is something we've talked about on the show, the Dutch elm disease issue.
Exactly. But back then, it would have been something visually as a sort of a silhouette you would have been able to identify immediately. So I think coming back to your gathering place, maybe not everyone was a tree identification expert then, but this one you could get.
Yeah. And so at some point, this tree, I don't know if adopted is the right word, but sort of gets adopted by folks who have a fervor, shall we say, for the religious cause. So it moves from being maybe a gathering place or an identifiable marker for any Bostonian to a place where some of these rabble-rousers in the years leading up to the American Revolution start saying, like, meet me at the tree.
Meet me at the tree. Yeah, the patriot group, the Sons of Liberty.
Heard of them. Now I have heard of them.
Yes. The Liberty Tree sort of became their symbol, their meeting place. They would like raise a flag on a flagpole next to the tree. As like when they were meeting up there. And there were some, it was a meeting place, but like some violent protests happened there. You had folks who were humiliated, and effigies of certain people involved in enforcing British taxes were hung from the tree. This guy, Andrew Oliver, is a notable one that a lot of historians write about, where they hung an effigy of him, and then a few days later, a few weeks, he he resigned in front of the city under that same tree where people had like hung a version of him from. So. It was a symbol of free speech. It was where people could speak their minds and assemble. But sometimes that assembly, you have to think about sort of the violence sometimes that came along with that early revolution.
Yeah. And at some point in that period, not only does it become, it seems like we know this, that in the historical record we see not only is the tree itself physically a place where this stuff is happening, but it also becomes adopted as a symbol for the revolution, which is to say there are poems written about it, and it's a pretty easy metaphor, right? It's a tree, it has roots. It's like if you're trying to grow a revolution on your shores, you can see why the Liberty Tree would be something you would grasp. But in its time, this is something that became important to early Americans.
Yeah, and even after its time, after the British loyalists chop it down, I think in 1775. 1825, Marquis de Lafayette comes to the site of the Liberty Tree, and it's a stump, but he still like writes this ode to the Liberty Tree and all that it means to the revolution. So at that point, so it goes beyond just the tree. It's this symbol that lives on.
Okay, so now let's get into, we maybe have some of the stump or maybe we don't. So what the story here is that the Massachusetts Historical Society for like 100 years, is that right? Have had 120 years. So we're talking...
Oh, actually more.
I think more.
Quick math. 160, 170.
Okay, so for many, many years, they've had what is essentially just like a bundle of sort of spindly little roots from a tree that it's sort of believed to be some of the roots of this actual Liberty tree, which the British chopped down.
Yeah, there was a Boston detective, Erastus Clapp, who dug up.
Erastus Clapp.
I know. I think he deserves a whole episode, probably, just based on his name. But he dug up in the mid-1800s that site where the tree originally grew. The stump was still there, and people knew that was the site. It was going to be redeveloped, and so it was going to be officially dug out and taken away. So a lot of people, probably not just him, took a little piece, understanding the importance of this tree. And Erastus Clapp had these 3 roots that fit into the palm of your hand. He wrapped them in red tape, and he knew, these are important, and he donated them or gave them to the Massachusetts Historical Society to keep and keep that history intact. So he assured them that's where it came from, and that was what it was from. But nobody ever checked it. So,
sure.
There's the historical documents, but like the actual physical specimen, like there are ways to check. Is it an American elm? And that's where Ned.
I was just going to say, perfect. Enter Ned Friedman. So, Ned, how did you get involved in this project? Who came knocking on your door? What happened here?
Well, it was the Massachusetts Historical Society. One thing you'll discover when you're the director of the Arnold Arboretum is that people think you have an answer for every tree question.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes. I'm batting, not nearly 100%. And but what usually happens with these questions is they lead down rabbit holes that are super fun.
Yeah.
So they sent me some images of this artifact that they have in their collection. And they're really, the roots are probably a centimeter or more in diameter. So this is not the trunk or the stump.
Right.
These are some roots that are way out there. And they had, because they'd been cut nice and clean, you could see the ends of the 3 roots. Now, there's a discipline, I teach these kinds of classes called plant anatomy.
Okay.
And it's the study of cell types that make up the bodies of plants.
Okay.
And when it comes to trees and wood, there are people who are world-renowned wood anatomists. They can tell you, looking at a tree's cross-section of the wood, the species like that.
Wow.
I'm not one of those.
Okay.
But
you know a guy who knows a guy.
I know a guy, and I know a gal, and I know some really great people. But I actually, elm is pretty distinctive. In terms of what is essentially wood is the plumbing. It's how you get water from the roots to the shoots. And if you showed me a cross section of an elm and you showed me a cross section of pine, piece of cake. They don't look anything alike.
Yeah.
And you would be able to see that with your naked eye. When you get beyond a certain point, you got to know a little bit more. And so I looked at these and I realized something that was kind of it's just one of these things when you realize, why have I never thought about learning something? So when you teach the anatomy of wood, you are teaching really for wood products, for, obviously their commercial application, for identification. You're always looking at the shoot system.
Yeah.
All right? So when was the last time I looked at the wood of a root system?
Yeah.
And the answer before the Massachusetts Historical Society called was never.
Yeah.
So there's half the plant world of trees, and I've never even taken a peek.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I look at this and I go, wow, if that is an American elm, it looks nothing like the wood of the shoot system, of the trunk of an American
itself.
elm. So, all right, but it had one thing in common. The water pipes in American elm that move water, these cells that are just basically hollow conduits, are huge compared to most other species. And you can even see them with your naked eye. And that's what you'll see. And if you go to the Historical Society in their photograph, you'll see these look like holes in the end of the roots.
If folks are watching on the YouTube stream, we've got a picture up right now, so you can see it up there.
Can you see a lot of holes?
A bunch of little holes. Yeah, a bunch of holes.
Those are pipes, and that's
how the water gets through.
Yeah, so
Incredible.
the roots are pulling the water in, and it's moving through these pipes, and eventually it goes out of a leaf.
Yeah,
and so those are big pipes, and they look completely consistent with elm. But elm is a ring porous wood.
What does that mean?
All right, I knew you'd ask.
That's what we do here. We ask.
I would have been so impressed if you hadn't. Oh yeah, I know all about those ring
we
porous
all know
species.
about that one.
Exactly. So what it means is that you could make pipes all through the growing season, and you would just have pipes along a growth ring from the beginning of the growth ring, and you would work your way out along a radius, and you'd have more.
Yeah.
And each year you just lay pipes down. A ring porous, pores refer to the pipes.
Yep.
Ring porous means that you lay all your pipes down at the very beginning of the spring, and then for the rest of the wood that's laid down, you have very small pipes. And so it's really distinctive. You get
Interesting, yeah.
You get these circles of pipes each year that are just a narrow band, and then the rest of the wood doesn't
it's just
have the
wood without the pipes.
Without
then you
the big
see
pipes.
the next spring set of pipes.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. So that's what elms look like, and there are
Yeah.
other species that look that way too. But the roots that if you look at this picture on YouTube, you'll see that there are no patterns like that. They're just
It's
lots
just
of
through the whole thing.
the whole
yeah.
thing. So I was like, well, this is a problem.
Uh-oh.
So then you start Googling into the literature and you think, well, how many people have studied the wood anatomy of roots? And it's like, I guess I wasn't the only one who hadn't looked.
Right.
It's not, again, this is not
Not
the
a
part
huge
of,
field.
Not a huge field, and it's not the economically important part of the tree.
Sure.
So you can imagine. But son of a gun, somewhere back in the 60s, a German anatomist had looked at not an American species of elm, but a European species of elm, sort of what we would call an English elm. And for whatever reason, he decided to make cross-sections of root right at the trunk.
That's some good science right there.
Yeah.
Just like, let's go ahead and do it.
You
Let's
just
analyze
do-
every
yep,
little
yep.
bit.
Just get the old saw out and go
Yeah.
to work. And then he said, I'm going to take a few steps out. He went out about 3 meters. Or we're in Europe, so I have to use meters.
Yeah.
And he took another cross-section. And then he walked about 7.5 meters out. And he took his final cross-section. And then he looked at him under the microscope. And the root that was right next to the trunk looked just like the ring porous wood that I would have described
Aha.
from the trunk. Okay, so that was worrisome because that wouldn't match with the Liberty tree
Right.
roots. And then about 3.5 meters out or whatever it was, you start to see that it's kind of like those ring porous is getting kind of bleedy into what we would call semi-ring porous,
Okay.
which means kind of ring porous, but we prefer semi.
Right.
And then when he got 7 meters out, it looked exactly like the cross-section of the American elm roots at the Historical Society.
Wow.
And
And we know the ones that the Historical Society has are probably from that far out because, as you said, it's the end. It's the end of the roots, right?
That's right. I mean, if it was right next to the base, you're talking some massive roots.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if these things are this big, they could have been even more than 7. They
Yeah.
could have been 15, 20 meters away.
Yeah.
So it matches perfectly.
Wow. So what can we say with certainty now, and what do we still not know? I mean, we can can we say with certainty that it's an elm? We think it's probably an elm tree root.
Oh, I think it's highly likely that
Highly
it's
likely.
an elm tree root, and it's highly likely it's an American elm. There were English elms being planted by settlers. You know, people bring trees when they go on voyages to conjure home. In fact, that's what a lot of people come to the Arnold Arboretum who are from various parts of the world. And where do they like to gather? Under a tree that's from their home country.
Yeah.
That's sort of a really special thing about trees. You grow up with them and you want to sort of keep those cultural elements. But we think this is probably an American elm. And the only way to be certain would be to extract some DNA and do a little bit of sequencing, which we could do. But given the provenance, the background, and let's assume that no one was lying, you could ask, well, what other species that would have been growing in that area would have matched these characteristics?
Right.
And there really aren't any other good candidates. It really, sort of by process of elimination, it seems it's got to be an American elm. And I feel confident that that's a good hypothesis.
Okay, so an American elm, but certainly we don't know for sure if it is the Liberty tree. Does that matter to the Historical Society? Do you think it matters to us, Hannah?
I think to them, they would say, the historians there, sure, the original would be nice. And that's what they aim to have, is originals so that they can, preserve the history. But it's really the ideas of the Liberty Tree, of free speech, of assembly, and also the ideas of protest that live on that are really more important. And that's what they want to keep around. So even though if it happens that those routes aren't the real thing, maybe it doesn't matter. Even though it's likely they are, they're still there and they represent something larger about the revolution.
Well, that's a sentiment I can get behind, and we're going to have to leave it there. We've been speaking with Curiosity Desk producer Hannah Loss and Ned Friedman, director of Harvard University's Arnold Arboretum, all about the Liberty Tree. You can check out Hannah's upcoming report by going to gbhnews.org. Thank you both for being with us today on the Curiosity Desk.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
When we return, what do the Bourne and Sagamore bridges have in common with a litter of labradoodles? Well, they're all up for adoption right now. You got till Friday. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, different spokes for different folks. Percussionist Reynaliz Herrera has found an ideal instrument in the bicycle, turning spokes, wheels, and motion into music. She joins us with an ensemble and live performance. Plus, Jill Medvedow returns for Read on Arrival, our book club for short books with long afterlives. This month, Hiromi Kawakami's Parade, a Folktale. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Museum of Science. From live science demonstrations to hands-on exhibits, families can explore the wonders of Earth's evolution and the frontiers of space this summer. Learn more at mos.org.
And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Question: are you looking to adopt? And no, we're not talking about a cat or a dog or even a child. The Bourne and Sagamore bridges are slated to be demolished in the coming years, but right now, if you act quick, the federal government is offering them up for adoption. You have till the end of the week to submit a proposal, but what does it even mean to adopt a bridge? What are you supposed to do with a dead bridge? Well, here to talk about that and more, we're joined by Brian Brenner over Zoom. He's a professor of practice at Tufts University and principal bridge engineer with Tie and Bond in Westwood. Brian, welcome to the Curiosity Desk. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, thanks for the invitation.
All right, so this seems sort of crazy to me, but this is something that is pretty common. The idea that before certain bridges are going to be demolished, there is this period where they're offered up to folks if they want them. Is it that simple?
Well, I think if you want to adopt a bridge, you're probably going to want to make sure you have enough room in your house,
yeah, and
you can pay for college and have all the requirements to take care of the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. So, we can get into the adoption bit of it in a minute and why somebody might do it and what they would do with it if they were to take a bridge. But I want to talk about a little bit, if we could, the fact that this is happening because these bridges are going to be demolished. And how do we sort of know when a bridge's time is up? You know what I mean? Like, how do we know, all right, these bridges have to go?
There's a process in place to regularly inspect bridges and evaluate them structurally in certain cases. And at a certain point, it may be decided that the bridge lacks capacity or just doesn't have a good enough function, and it makes more sense to replace the bridge than try to repair it.
So one of the terms that I've seen, this is a story that we've been following. It's been developing for some time. These are, pretty important bridges here in this area. I see this term functionally obsolete, and it freaks me out because I sort of go, functionally obsolete? Should anybody be going, like, they're not going to be demoed for another 10 years or whatever, or 6 years, but I see it referred to as functionally obsolete. What does that mean for a bridge to be functionally obsolete? Does it mean it's unsafe?
It does not mean it's unsafe. It does mean that it probably is not satisfying current requirements or standards. For example, the lanes may be too narrow, or it may not have enough capacity to satisfy the requirements. of today, or there may be certain geometric issues with it, such as curves are too tight or that type of thing. It doesn't meet modern requirements.
Yeah. How hard is it? How hard is it to inspect a bridge? You know, how often are they checked, and what's the process look like to check a bridge? I mean, you know, obviously, especially if it's going over water, at least part of that bridge is under the water. I mean, how do you do it?
Most bridges require inspections at least every 2 years. Some bridges, if they're in a deteriorating condition, may require supplemental inspections more frequent than that. And the type of inspection and the process would depend a lot on the bridge. You know, a relatively simple bridge like a beam bridge over land has much less demand for inspection than, say, the Bourne Bridge, which is over water. And there's a whole bunch of specialized equipment for visual inspections, such as trucks that have snoopers that people can go below the bridge and look at individual members of the bridge.
Did you say snoopers? What are snoopers?
I'm using like a slang for a truck that has a boom.
Oh, cool.
That can hold a person or two, and the boom is extended below the bridge so that people can inspect up close different parts of the bridge.
Oh, neat. And you call those snoopers in your business?
That's my slang for it.
Oh, that's yours. That's good. You should. Yeah. I mean, you should trademark that term. That's great.
Okay.
This is the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with bridge engineer Brian Brenner about Cape Cod bridges that are being offered up for adoption. So who would adopt a bridge? I mean, who are the people or organizations? Like, has it ever been done?
I've actually was involved with and I'm continuing involved with a group in St. Louis, not St. Louis, in Missouri, which actually did that. So,
adopted a bridge?
Adopted a bridge, yeah. So there's a small suspension bridge in the Ozarks, which Missouri DOT determined that it needed to be replaced with a new bridge. And the people in the area have a lot of affection and appreciation for the original bridge. It's a great little bridge. And when Missouri DOT offered the opportunity to adopt the bridge, they put together a little organization and made a proposal to Missouri, the DOT, and it was approved. So now this organization owns a bridge, and they're responsible for taking care of it. And it's arranged for recreational uses. They've set up a new parking lot, and they have functions on the bridge. And instead of being demolished, the bridge is now staying in place.
What's the? I see behind you. There's a bridge on. If folks are watching on YouTube and they're seeing you here, there's a bridge behind you. What bridge is that behind you?
That is the Bridge of Flowers in Shelburne, Massachusetts.
Tell us about the Bridge of Flowers in Shelburne, Massachusetts.
One of my favorite bridges.
Really? Why?
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's a garden.
That's cool.
And it's also a nice bridge. So the Bridge of Flowers started off as a trolley bridge, and it supported industry in the valley, in Deerfield River Valley. And at a certain point, the trolley company closed down. So the residents of Shelburne Falls decided that they were going to create a garden on top of the bridge. This is like decades ago. And now it's a flowering bridge. It's a very popular attraction in the area, and it draws people from all around. And it's a very creative reuse of the bridge, which would have maybe have been demolished in the past.
Yeah. I mean, short of like, these bridges that you're talking about, kind of, look at the Shelburne Bridge behind you. It looks like that bridge has remained in place where it was and has just been made into new use. I mean, when people adopt a bridge, so to speak, or sort of, can they move the bridge? Are bridges movable? Has that been done?
In some cases, bridges can be moved. It's going to depend a lot on the type of bridge. So, for example, the bridge behind me would be very difficult to move because it's made out of concrete. But a steel bridge, like a truss bridge, can be taken apart and moved to a new location. And in fact, that's been done a bit. UMass Amherst has, they've moved some old truss bridges to the campus, historic truss bridges, and relocated there. And I can think of another example in also Michigan, but in Michigan, where they moved a whole bunch of truss bridges and created a whole park around it.
Wow,
that sounds like a great park to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you get so deep into the world of bridges?
I was since I was very young, I wanted to be a bridge engineer. So my parents tell me that when I was 4, I started getting really excited every time we drive by a bridge. So I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah.
But since then, I was fortunate to stay on the path, and I went to engineering school and became a bridge engineer, and it's been good for me.
Do you
Worked
have
out.
I mean, you say you're not really sure what was going on with you, that you immediately kind of took to it when you were a kid, but you're an adult now. You've been you've been working in this field for a long time. Can you articulate what is it about what is it about bridges that pleases you so much, that keeps you like sort of excited?
I like there's the professional interest. When I see a bridge, I'm always curious about how the bridge was made and what's the circumstances of the bridge. But I also find the bridge is very evocative and beautiful. Just the whole experience of the bridge, the way it spans and the way it fits into the landscape. I just find it really interesting, and I'd like to see it. So
Yeah. I mean, besides the Shelbourne Bridge behind you there, which you pointed out is one of your favorite bridges, do you have like a pantheon of bridges in your mind, like favorite bridges that just blow your mind, that you I see now your eyes are widening and you're nodding. Tell us about them.
Well, my favorite bridge, I'm going to apologize because this is a New York favorite bridge. Sorry about that.
Careful. No, you're fine.
I'm
It's a safe
in
space.
trouble now.
No, this is a safe space.
Safe space. My favorite bridge is the Verrazano Bridge in New York.
Why?
And well, when I was 4 years old, my mother rode away to the governor to get tickets for the opening, and I went to the opening of the Verrazano Bridge. And since then, it's always been really stuck out on my mind. It's a gorgeous bridge.
Oh, that's cool. Do you know anybody who loves bridges as much as you do, Brian? I'm getting the sense that you are like top tier bridge lover.
I haven't really thought about it that way. I have a lot of colleagues who are bridge engineers, and we all have this appreciation. I think if you're a bridge engineer and you have that type of appreciation for it, it helps, because you get to look at the bridges, and I think it helps professionally your job.
Yeah.
So, but I haven't really thought about the contest that way, and I have to talk to my friends to see if they can compete in that category.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I think you'd win on Bridge Jeopardy for sure if they were ever to have a Bridge Jeopardy. What do you make of the Zakim Bridge?
a Zakin Bridge is gorgeous. It's just like such an iconic structure. I also like the comparison between the older Boston and the modern bridge. It's interesting to me how the Zakin Bridge has become almost like an infrastructure symbol for the city. And it's just it's so different than the old brick and the landscape that we think of for Boston.
Yeah. So going back to these two Cape Cod bridges, this adoption thing, it sort of has to happen. I mean, what are the chances somebody, kind of could adopt one of these? And if they were to, what is something that is conceivably possible in terms of a reuse of them, or moving them, or getting some of the scrap pieces for something? I mean, what do you think the chances are?
It seems like it would be a long shot because it's such a difficult bridge to move, but you never know. I mean, I was involved in a project in Haiti where there are pieces of the old Fall River Bridge, and the contractor determined that they wanted to do a charity project, and they disassembled parts of the old temporary bridge and then transported to Haiti, and now that's used as a bridge in Haiti. So it's possible. Yeah.
That's crazy. I
Yeah,
had
it's pretty
no
amazing.
idea. Yeah, that is amazing. All right. Well, we have been speaking with the principal bridge engineer and Tufts professor Brian Brenner, all about bridges. If you need a guy who loves bridges, Brian is your man. Thanks so much, Brian, for your time here on the Curiosity Desk.
Yeah. Thanks for the invitation.
And don't forget, we always are running on your curiosity. We love to get your questions, whether they're about a bridge or anything else. You can go to our website, wgbh.org, search the Curiosity Desk. We got a handy-dandy form there. You can send us your question, and if we can, we will look into it for you. Next up, there's no time for promo. I have to go put my Abigail Adams-inspired antique garments on. We'll be right back. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
Toy Story 5 is on the big screen, and one of the movie's plot points is all about little screens. screen time for kids, that is.
When my kids were spending too much time on screens, it made them really grumpy and unpleasant to be around.
I'm Scott Detrow. Research shows that screen time gets higher during the summer. A look at the battle between toys and technology on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Native Plant Trust. More than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how using natives can help mitigate climate change at nativeplanttrust.org. And Gentle Giant Moving and Storage Company, offering local, long-distance office and piano moving with 23 locations throughout New England and across the country. More information at gentlegiant.com.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, when you think about Abigail Adams, you might think of her as a wife and close advisor to John Adams, maybe as one of our founding mothers, maybe even think of her as a writer. What you might not know is she was actually quite the fashionista as well. Heck, I might even want to dress like her, and now I finally have a shot, because our next guest, Abigail Adams Interpreter Sarah Walsh, has a workshop where I can finally learn how to make the dress of my dreams. Tomorrow, they're going to be hosting a lecture from 6:30 to 8 at the Button House Museum, where they will explain all considerations that go into creating antique garments. Then in July, there's going to be a replica of a silk gown that was believed to be worn by Abigail Adams. If it's all coming together and you can be a part of it, it's all part of a larger sort of effort on their part called Stitching History Together. And here to talk about it and her life as Abigail Adams once again is Sarah Walsh. Sarah, welcome back to the Curiosity Desk. As you came into the studio, I said, this is actually what you look like. Last time we had you, you were in full Abigail Adams gear.
I was in my 18th century regalia, as you could say.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. I'm here for the first time to talk about our second first lady.
Oh, I see what you did there. First time for second. That's pretty nice. That's a good turn of phrase right there. Well, let's talk about. I want to talk a little bit for folks who weren't listening when you were with us the first time. I mean, your journey in this world, so to speak, begins, I think, when you were 10 and your mother sort of gave you or worked with you with a sewing machine, and that was your introduction to like sewing.
Yeah, so she taught me to sew on the 1947 Singer sewing machine that had been my grandmother's, which is now mine. And, just sewing basic patterns, front, back, the sort of simple ways of putting clothing together, right? And it wasn't until 2016 that I really started looking at historical sewing methods, being as accurate as is possible, given the changes between antique textiles and modern textiles,
Sure.
Thread, needles, tools, all of
Methods,
that.
yeah.
It's, there's only so much you can really do. And anyone who says, historical accuracy as a weapon is, don't listen to that.
Yeah.
But basically, as authentically as we can, putting clothing together, wearing clothing in the manner that it was made and worn in the 18th century.
Well, what got you there from, you know what I mean? From being like, all right, I know how to sew a little bit, to like, no, I'm going to I'm really going to specialize on trying to figure out as much as I possibly can about accurately making 17th and 18th century clothing. Like, how did you make that leap? Why?
So it was theater. I was involved in
classic.
I was a producer and also starred as Abigail Adams in a production with Reboot Theater Company. Shout out to my friends back in Seattle. That was the inaugural production for Reboot Theater, 1776, and it was a cast of female and non-binary actors putting on a show that is heavily male. And there have been many large-scale and even Broadway productions now of female and non-binary actors putting on this show and kind of demonstrating the variety of people now that, have an impact on politics and policy and all of that. Seeing that on stage is really wonderful to see when it's the broad spectrum of humanity in the parts of these, very male-centered spaces. So I was Abigail for that show. And then a year later, I was invited to become a historical reenactor as Abigail.
And were you immediately like, yes, this is the ask I've been waiting for all my life? Or did you stop and think about it?
It was a little bit daunting because I'd done the show. I loved the show. 1776 was one of my favorite shows.
Great show. Good music.
And it's a very different thing to go from a script to ad-libbing as a historical figure. That's a different prospect. But reading her letters, reading books, I found every single book I could at the public library. Go to the public library, support your public libraries. And just read and read and read and learned about kind of what goes into her mindset about all of these events that she was a witness to and active in. And so doing historical reenactment, the goal is you're dressing and standing and talking like that historical figure. So that was what kind of launched me on, trying to do this sort of accurate sewing and dressmaking.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Sarah Walsh, a.k.a. Abigail Adams, about really old clothes, including Abigail Adams' really old clothes. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit more in detail about the sort of challenges of how do you get these things as accurate as possible? Like, what are the tools at your disposal when you are trying to say, like, okay, like, how would Abigail Adams have, I don't know, was she making her own dresses, or like, how do you, like, what's out there for research for you to be able to be like, okay, this is as much as we can know? Like, where do you go?
That's a really good question. So the dressmaking was a skill. It was a skilled trade. The people who did it were called mantua makers, and they kept their methods and practices you'll forgive this pun, but close to the vest, because they didn't want anyone to
make the dresses,
exactly.
The clothes the way they were doing it.
There were, I'm trying to remember the exact number. Mark Hutter, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I think there were 75 tailors working in colonial Williamsburg during the 17th and 18th centuries. So everybody needs clothes, right? So from enslaved all the way up to the governor to the, viceroy, everyone's going to need clothing. And in the 18th century, clothing was made bespoke to the wearer's body. So everything is done, you're measuring the person in front of you with, the necessary undergarments on. And yes, even men wore stays getting into the 19th century and everything. And so those methods, we have some stitching guides, we have some, books that were written. But again, a lot of those historical practices, we kind of have to employ a lot of guesswork. I mean, you're looking at the fabric. If you can, you're holding the fabric, you're touching the fabric, you're seeing where certain seams are. You're, looking at, is there wear in certain areas? Is there, a seam where it was let out or taken in order to fit somebody else? Because even though I said, yes, clothing was made bespoke to the wearer, the fabric was the thing that was valuable. So if you could maintain the value of a textile by continuing to use it, whether that meant cutting it up into a smaller person's clothes or letting out a seam, you would do that. You would maintain the value of a textile as long as possible. So we can study garments from the time, we can see what they have to tell us. But again, the actual documentation of first you do this and then you do that and then you do this it's passed down orally, a lot of it. Abigail would not have made her own garments. She would have made shifts, shirts, and other linen items for her family.
Okay.
But for the most part, she and her children, John, when he was around, they would, go to a tailor or mantua maker in order to have clothing made.
Okay. So, you know, I'm sort of joking at the top about her being a fashionista, but like what do we know about Abigail Adams, for lack of a better way of saying it, in modern sort of terms, maybe like what was her fashion like? Was she a good dresser? Was she stylish?
I mean,
was she cutting edge?
Yeah. In the earlier years of their marriage, John was a farmer and a lawyer, and, you know, she would have dressed fairly, Practically, yeah. I mean, she's wearing wool clothes. She's wearing, you know, hard-wearing clothes that are easy to keep clean because she's managing an entire household and a farm. As he becomes congressman and then diplomat and then vice president, she's called on to update and, you know, wear finer clothes and kind of match, you know, the tone of what she's now part of. And her letters are very telling about how she felt about Parisian fashions.
Did she take to it, or was she like, this is all nonsense?
She talked about how they were very immodestly dressed for her sensibilities. She was very disparaging about how they were getting dressed for the evenings.
All right. We're talking to Sarah Walsh, a.k.a. Abigail Adams, about fashion. This is the Curiosity Desk. All right. So how did you get hooked up with Buttonwoods, and like tell us about like this stitching history together and what it's all about? And you've got a thing tomorrow. There's more coming down the pike in the summer. Tell us all about it.
So this has been 6 years in the making. In 2020, lockdown, the pandemic, I was digging and going down many, many rabbit holes about Abigail Adams and trying to kind of figure out, okay, what are the belongings, clothes, anything that I can sort of, you know, that I could see or understand more about her. And I found that Buttonwoods Museum in Haverhill has this gown with provenance to Abigail's family. And it wasn't until 2022 that I was able to actually go and visit the museum, see the gown for myself, talk to the curator, you know, handle it, take photos of it, look at it. And the curator said, you know, this gown is pretty fragile. It hasn't been on display. It hasn't been on view since, I think it was in the 80s. There was a display of First Lady's fashion at the Smithsonian. And that was the last time it had ever been mounted. And, you know, so, and she said, it's getting pretty fragile. I would love to have a replica made that could be displayed. Do you know anybody who could do that?
And you thought to yourself, well,
I mean, I could, you know, so I was, you know, at that point I felt I'd made 2 or 3 gowns completely by hand. I felt pretty confident, you know, that was something I could do. And then went and visited the gown again in 2024. I did my best to sort of take a pattern from the existing gown. Now, this gown has gone through several alterations, several changes over the years. In terms
can you
of,
sort of like forensically sort of see that as you like look through it? You kind of go like, all right, these look like they were done at the same time. This one might have been done at a different time. Kind of thing?
You can definitely tell like different threads that were used, different even a different hand. Like if one person is stitching right-handed and another person is stitching left-handed, you'll see that on the gown. Seams that have been let out or taken in. Yeah. Kind of ghost stitches, I call it, where it's like you can see that there was thread there. There's now just the holes where the thread used to be.
Yeah.
Any kind of folds or pleats or creases, places where something that, you know, had been part of the gown was taken away or added on. Piecing is really common in these gowns, like adding length, adding width to a sleeve, things like that. So, you know, it's been sort of the process of coming to this point where, yes, a team of sewists is going to get together and replicate this gown. We're going to do it over the course of 5 days at the end of July. So tomorrow, Lisa and I are giving this lecture about this process of what can you glean from looking at a historic garment? What can you learn? What can you not necessarily learn? What, you know, depending on your level of access to it. If you're just looking at the pictures that a museum provides on their website, or you're looking at drawings of it, or whatever it may be, what can you determine about a gown just by studying it.
Give us a sneak peek. What's one of them? Some of them you were talking about, maybe, I guess, like the
so
ghost
for example,
stitching
in this gown that Buttonwoods has, it looks to me like there used to be pocket slits in the skirt.
Mm-hmm.
So a pocket at this time was not an integral part of a garment. It was tied on around your waist, and then you'd put the gown on, and there'd be a pocket slit in the skirt to give you access to the pocket. And there are pocket slits that got stitched up when the gown got refashioned and the skirt was re-pleated from knife pleats to cartridge pleats. Those got moved around so they were no longer where a pocket would be, and they just got stitched up. So, seeing things like that, you're looking at, they wanted to still be able to wear the gown. They wanted to still be able to, appreciate the value of the fabric. What are the things that they have done in order to maintain the value of this textile and keep it fashionable for, the next couple of years?
Yeah. So in July, when you and these other sewers are going to put this dress together over a course of days, is that a tight timeline? Are you going to be under the crunch to get it done, or is that like a reasonable amount of time to pull this
5
off?
days we're going to have 4 sewists up until from the Wednesday to Friday, and then another of my friends is going to be joining us for the Saturday and Sunday. A gown like this in a mantua maker's shop could be probably made in 3 to 4 days if that's the only thing you're doing is working on this gown. So that's what we're hoping to replicate is, the process start to finish of making a gown that can be displayed.
That's pretty cool. This gown that we're basing it on, how sure are we that it did belong to Abigail? Is it like, could you put a number on it? Are we like mostly sure? Are we fingers crossed, really kind of hoping?
The provenance that came with the gown when it was donated to the museum in 1944, it was donated by Abigail's sister's great-great-great granddaughter, I believe.
Okay,
so it
possible.
It is connected to Abigail. It's connected to Haverhill history, and both of Abigail's sisters settled in Haverhill when they married. So it is connected to Abigail's family. Do I know for certain that Abigail actually wore this gown? I don't know that for sure. But it has family provenance and family lore that it was, in fact, a member of Abigail's, sister's family who donated the gown.
Yeah, we're on a bit of a theme today. So now in my mind, I'm thinking, I hope Abigail really was wearing this particular gown and she went by the Liberty Tree, because earlier today we were talking about whether the Liberty Tree's roots, which may or may not be at the Historical Society.
Right.
So in my mind, that's what happened. It is her gown and she wore it to the Liberty Tree.
So, and the main focus for me and for the entire project is we know that this gown has this connection to Abigail Adams' family. What's important is sharing everything else about the gown that, can sometimes get lost in the shuffle when it has a famous name attached to it.
Which is what?
So any other, the people involved in the textile industry from the very beginning to the making of a gown, you've got a global industry that, we don't know the names of the people who grew the silkworms. We don't know the names of the people who wove the textile. We don't know the names of the people who first made the gown. Were they enslaved? Were they indentured? So we want to try to talk about everything that goes into making a gown like this, all of the stories that you can deduce that aren't just famous lady wore this. So. All
right. That's Sarah Walsh, a.k.a. Abigail Adams. Again, tomorrow they will host a lecture from 6:30 to 8 at the Buttonwoods Museum.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock to 8 at the Buttonwoods Museum. They'll explain all that goes into creating antique garments. Then, July 22nd to 26th, part of a group that's going to create a replica of a silk gown that may or may not have been worn by Abigail Adams. And if you're on the stream, Sarah has not come as Abigail Adams today, but don't fret. She will be at the event in her at the sewing event and the lecture, or just the sewing
tomorrow
event?
night. No, but at the sewing
event
yes.
in July. You can see her in all of her Abigail Adams gear. Sarah, thanks so much for being with us again today on the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you.
And right now I'm going to turn my attention to the Boston Public Library and the one and only Jared Bowen. How are you, Jared?
I'm well, Edgar. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. What do you got on the show today?
So we have a whole team of people that's just to my right here because we have Reynaliz Herrera, the musician-composer. She's performing with an orchestra by concerto, a 4-movement concerto for solo, bicycle, and orchestra.
Amazing.
Yes, I said bicycle.
She's so good.
Sees and hears music in gorgeous ways, as we will hear with 2 performances. Jill Medvedow, our literary connoisseur, you also know her as the director emerita of the ICA, is here for Big Little Books. This is our regular series looking at small books that have a big impact.
Love
this week,
that.
we're talking about Parade by Hiromi Kawakami, a story about a little girl and the creatures that tag along with her as she dives into her memory. And then Jameson Johnson of the Boston Art Review, founder and editor-in-chief, is talking about the latest issue and 250 celebrations.
That's another good one coming your way from Jared Bowen and the Culture Show in just about under 2 minutes, so don't go anywhere. As for us, that about does it for now. The Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Our intern is Mukta Dharma Parikar. Patty Daniels and Janie Bologna help us knit all our loose threads together. Our engineers, John the Claw Parker. Special thanks today to Andrew Massawa and Bradley Lewis. We'll be right back here in 23 short hours on GBH 89.7 and streaming on YouTube. If you can't wait that long, you can check out the podcast version of our show. You can get that wherever it is you get your podcasts. Till next time, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. On the next Nature, explore the history of the uniquely American horse breeds that helped shape the nation and meet the people who care for them. Watch American Horses tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show news desk, I'm Henry Santoro. The music world continues to mourn the death of music industry icon Clive Davis, who'd passed earlier this week at age 94. Just so happens that several years ago, my friend and colleague Kurt St. Thomas was hired away from WFNX, the Boston-based alternative rock station we worked at, by Clive. Kurt first met Clive Davis at an industry convention in New Orleans, and Clive hired him on the spot.
I worked for him for 5 years, so I had many moments, too many to do in a radio interview, but I think it was really interesting, his process with music. He was not a guy who played any instruments. He was a lawyer, and he rose through the ranks of the music business, and he had a real knack for picking things out of songs and picking songs and placing those songs with artists. I mean, it was pretty wild watching him work. He could just listen to a song and say, that should be for Whitney Houston, or he could listen to another song and say, that should be for Toni Braxton. It was very odd how he had some uncanny ability to be able to tap into what the right songs would be for the right artists. And also he would do things sometimes that would amaze me, like comments about music. Like he would make a comment about a lyric in a song, and we should change that lyric because it's not young enough, or, you know, he was very weirdly calculated for an older man to be able to know what somebody who's 18 years old is going to like.
Former WFNX program director Kurt St. Thomas reflecting on what it was like working with and for Clive Davis. That's this edition of the GBH News Weekly Wednesday Afternoon Culture Cast. I'm Henry Santoro. Next up, The Culture Show with my friend and yours, Jared Bowen, live at the Boston Public Library.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Reynaliz Herrera. She's a classically trained percussionist who found her ideal instrument in the bicycle, turning spokes, wheels, and motion into music. Now she's expanded her sound with an orchestral ensemble. She joins us with a live performance. Then it's another edition of Read on Arrival, our book club devoted to short books with long afterlives. Literary connoisseur and former ICA director Jill Medvedow leads the way with Hiromi Kawakami's 96-page novella, Parade, a Folktale, a story about childhood memories and the creatures we carry with us. And Boston Art Review's Jameson Johnson is back with the magazine's latest issue, a field guide to art, history, and how Greater Boston's creative scene is thinking about America at 250. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen, live on 89.7 from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. You're listening to The Culture Show, and we're listening to Reynaliz Herrera. Reynaliz Herrera is a classically trained percussionist and composer who found her voice when she realized a bicycle could be more than transportation, that it could be a wildly versatile percussive instrument with rhythm and texture. That recording is from October 2024 when Herrera joined us for the first time on the show with Bike Concerto. That day it was just Herrera playing her bike. Today she returns with something much bigger, Bike Concerto, the 4-movement concerto for solo, bicycle, and orchestra that she composed and performs. She joins us along with the musicians of the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra to perform excerpts from the piece. Herrera is a percussionist and composer who trained classically, then built a career around the bicycle as an instrument, taking that work to festivals, museums, and concert halls across the country. Reynaliz Herrera, welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Great to see you again.
It's good to see you, and you have grown, as we can see with the 10-person orchestra to my right here. This has been such an extraordinary project for you. For people who may not have heard your first appearance on the show, just give us a sense again of what you discovered in the bicycle as an instrument, just by looking, feeling, and hearing it.
Yeah, so, well, like you said, I'm a percussionist, so I play normal instruments as well. But then I always been inclined to also explore with unconventional instruments and theatrical combine theater and music and stuff. And long story short, I found the bicycle attractive at some point. And I decided to explore it. I got super excited about it. And I wrote my first piece. Then I wrote my second piece. So basically right now I have 7 different pieces. So, and I developed my company, Ideas Not Theories, around the same time. So I kind of exploring the bicycle in different musical styles and settings. So you're going to hear Bike Concerto in the setting of with an orchestra, as a soloist with an orchestra. But I have created also a full stage show in the setting of combining bicycles and other unconventional instruments and theater and a storyline. And I have a bicycle rock band with guitar and bass and what else do we have? Bicycle solo, etc., etc. So
I want to go back to your orchestra, which goes again to the heart of what you're talking about. Ideas Not Theories. That's the name. How does that give us an insight into how you approach music and what can be an instrument?
Yeah. So with Ideas Not Theories, actually, so the background story quickly is. So I was finishing at the conservatory in my master's, and I was kind of frustrated with the typical path of a classical percussionist, and I was kind of looking to find my own voice. So that's when I started with Ideas Not Theories, and to me it represents ideas, something open, versus theory, something more close. And that's kind of what my mindset was. And Ideas Not Theories is actually mostly ensemble for percussion, like theatrical percussion, and obviously bicycles and all that. But when I wrote Baikenshero, I expanded to also have my own orchestra through the ensemble.
Well, before you're going to perform one piece for us and then come back for more conversation, before you do that, I want to just ask about what it has been like, as I feel like we talked to you fairly early on in the process, but what it's been like for you to take this out into the world and how people have embraced it, or maybe they haven't. Are people skeptical of you playing a bicycle?
Yeah. No, yeah, good question, because last time I saw you, I had just gotten my grant, the Live Arts Boston grant from the Boston Foundation to support this, which is a tour of Baikenshero, my Baikenshero piece with Ideas Not Theories. So I had just gotten that, and I was just about to start planning the tour and everything. And the last 6 months or something has been the mist of the tour. So it's been pretty intense, but it's been very gratifying as well. And I think it's been one of my most intense projects producing wise, because we took 11 people to different states and 20 people here and all sorts of different venues, and the reception has been great.
Well, I'll talk to you more about the embrace on the other side of this as you head to your orchestra right behind me. Again, the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra. Tell us what you're going to be performing.
Yeah, so right now in the first performance, we're going to perform excerpts from 2 of the movements of Baikenshero. The first movement is entitled Everything Movement, and the other one is entitled Metallic Movement. So we play 2 excerpts of that.
All right, well, as Reynaliz Herrera is working her way over to play her bicycle with the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra, we're just reminding people that she's here to talk about Baikenshero. The composer and bicycle percussion soloist has devised this, looking at the bicycle as an instrument. Was Reynaliz Herrera, composer and bicycle percussion soloist with excerpts from Bike Concerto. That was from the Everything Movement, her concerto for solo and bicycle and orchestra. That would be the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra. We have a list of the full performance credits on our website. Welcome back to the desk here. Just watching you play is extraordinary. How was there a proving ground for you? Was there testing to get to that point where you know all of the elements of the bicycle that can be played and the different registers they all have? For people who weren't watching on our streaming channel, you were playing so much of the different elements of the bicycle.
Yeah, so I think the proving ground has been like just the amount of time I've been playing on bicycles. So I've been doing this for like 13 years. And of course, at the beginning, of course, I have more experience now, so I know what the bicycles offer and what to look in each bicycle and the best kind of materials, the best sounding parts, where I can find a bass, where I can find a high-pitched thing, where I can find a metallic sound. And for this piece, since it's my newest piece, I was more, picky about what bicycle to use.
Really?
And what sounds I wanted, because I'm more familiar with what they offer, so I'm like, I want this sound, this sound, this sound, this sound.
So this is a very particular bicycle you're playing.
Yeah, I will say that's kind of like my hybrid bicycle, where I knew kind of what I wanted, and I kind of took some parts from other bicycles into there, so it's the perfect bicycle. It has the best sounding chain wheel, the best sounding protector disc, the best sounding frame. What else do you want?
Well, you know how to do it. Well, what was it for you to fill this out with this orchestral sound that we just heard? And I'm wondering about its creation. If you're somebody who visualizes a story as you're writing or a color, how did you write this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So my process to write this piece with bicycle and orchestra was kind of, I would say maybe chaotic, because so for some of the movements, I had, let's say, melodic ideas, like orchestral ideas, and then I went with that, I developed that idea, and then I wrote the bicycle on top of that. For other instances, I had ideas and I was imagining how the bicycle could fit there. One interesting process I had was actually for the movement that we just played, the So that theme, it came to me, I wrote the bicycle part first for this one. And I actually was literally just tapping around, and I ended up tapping that rhythm, and I really liked it. So I was like, I was like, oh, I like that. I'm gonna use that for my piece. And then I developed the rhythm and created the theme, and I went from there with the orchestral music.
So what happens now that you're nearing the end of this tour? You see what can be done with an object people haven't necessarily considered as an instrument. Has this just opened your eyes widely to other things that people may not recognize can be part of an orchestra?
Yeah, I mean, so when I started all this stuff with the bicycle and with Ideas Not Theories, it was more of like a unconventional instrument thing. So I was doing music with bicycles, with water, with tap dance, body percussion, or I'm still doing that. But one time I performed music like drumming on a boat, for example, like things like that. So I always liked that. And then I kind of zoned into the bicycle. So I kind of really I'm just like that, I guess. Like I can be really open in the sense of like, oh, I'm just going to go and play a bicycle. But then really serious in the sense of like, but I'm going to explore it like to the detail or something. So I guess that's just kind of like how I am. So I did that with the bicycle. I think I do want to do that eventually with other things, like with water. That's something I really like, and I've done to some extent, and I do plan to do that more, explore more of using water as an instrument.
I mean, you must be, you're part scientist, you're part mathematician to understand the weight of water, for instance. And I noticed that you have several tires lined up against you, probably inflated differently and with different diameters, and the tread, all of course producing a different sound.
Yeah. And yeah, this piece was more, I went into more nuance with the bicycles, because usually I just play on the actual bicycle. And this time I wanted to explore more in detail, like the tires themselves. So I did kind of tune them to different pitches. And then right now we're not performing this movement, but another of my movements is for spokes. So I tune the spokes and have different pitches. And I have kind of like almost a keyboard. That's actually one of the hardest ones because it's a random keyboard. So I'm just playing the notes that the spokes have, or I end up tuning. So I'm literally just like memorizing the movement like that. But
last question before you go return for an encore performance. Can anything be played? Can anything be an instrument?
Yeah, I think anything can be an instrument. It also just depends on what your ears to tell you, or artists to tell you what's an interesting sound, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you inspire us all, Reynaliz Herrera. You're going to work your way back over. Tell me what this movement is that you're playing.
Yeah, so this is an excerpt of Movement 4 entitled Tires Movement.
Tires. We know to listen for that. Thank you for being here. I'll thank you again on the other side of this as you rejoin your orchestra. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, and if all of the names of the orchestra is in their website, right?
It'll be on our website.
Or in my website, yeah.
Both places. Again, I've been speaking with Reynaliz Herrera, who is a composer and bicycle percussion soloist with excerpts from Bike Concerto, her concerto for solo, bicycle, and orchestra. She is joined right now by members of the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra. So once again, composer, writer, experimenter, Reynaliz Herrera. So fantastic. This has been so wonderful, so invigorating. We thank Reynaliz Herrera and her entire orchestra, the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra, who have joined us here in the studio at the Boston Public Library today. Thank you so much and congratulations. We again have been listening to Reynaliz Herrera. That was her Tires movement, composer and bicycle percussion soloist she is, with excerpts from Bike Concerto, her concerto for solo, bicycle, and orchestra. She has been joined here by members of the Ideas Not Theories Orchestra. We have a list of the full performance credits on our website. You can also hear the Bike Concerto album on major streaming platforms and Bandcamp, and find out more about Herrera's work through her website, ideasnottheories.com. Again, thank you so much to all of you for coming in here and being here with us this afternoon. Coming up, Too Small to Fail. It's time for another episode of Big Little Books, our book club series featuring books you can read in one sitting that will also live with you for a lifetime. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Toy Story 5 is on the big screen, and one of the movie's plot points is all about little screens. Screen time for kids, that is.
When my kids were spending too much time on the screens, it made them really grumpy and unpleasant to be around.
I'm Scott Detrow. Research shows that screen time gets higher during the summer. A look at the battle between toys and technology on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Subaru of New England. The all-wheel drive 2026 Subaru Crosstrek is committed to keeping loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And Rogers Fish Company, founded by Roger Berkowitz, offering an array of New England seafood and entrees shippable anywhere in the U.S. More at rogersfishcompany.com. And Beacon Circle patron Nancy L. Donahue, proud to support GBH 89.7 and the commitment to local, national, and global journalism that inspires, engages, and supports diversity in the community.
Your community, your news, your favorite station.
It's all on the new GBH News app.
Download it today on the App Store and Google Play.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Some books are short enough to read in one sitting, but large enough to linger long after. Think Melville's Bartleby the Scrivener or Kafka's The Metamorphosis, classics that don't even reach 100 pages. Today, we're continuing our series celebrating small books that pack a big punch. It's called Big Little Books. If you're paying attention at home, yes, we changed our title overnight from Read on Arrival to Big Little Books, which we think packs a bigger punch. And leading the way is literary connoisseur Jill Medvedow, whom you may also know as the Director Emerita of Boston's Institute of Contemporary Art. For this episode, she chose the 79-page novella Parade, a Folktale by Hiromi Kawakami, translated by Allison Markin Powell. It begins with a meal and a woman receiving this request from her teacher, quote, "Tell me a story from long ago." What follows is a peculiar remembrance of childhood days and the mythical creatures who tagged alongside her. It's a story about memory and guilt, about what from our early lives we towed around in adulthood. Jill Medvedow, welcome back to The Culture Show. Great to see you again.
Great to see you.
Well, as always, I try to give the sparest introduction, and it's always so interesting. And all of the big little books that we've profiled so far, there is so much layer, despite their short size. How would you describe the overall sense of this book?
Well, this is our shortest book, for sure. For those who are here, it's 4 by 6 inches, and as you said, 79 pages, and it has illustrations, so there's even fewer words. But this book feels a lot like a dream state in many ways. It combines a sort of etherealness with a lot of specificity. And though folktales aren't my usual genre, I really, really loved going into a different kind of mode of literature. I'd read a book by this author, by Kawakami, before. I'd picked it up in a bookstore. I'd not heard of her. My bad. But I liked the title of this other book called The Nakano Thrift Shop. And that's a full-size novel. And it has some things in common, which is following kind of characters who are in some ways ordinary. They're not larger-than-life characters at any rate. And combining this sense of like what makes up their daily life, what are the little actions, what are the specificities that make up their day and give them incredible dignity as we begin to understand a little more about them.
Well, I thought that was, speaking of the ordinariness of everyday life, I so appreciated that our first real scene setting is a meal. As I mentioned, this happens over a meal, over noodles with egg, ginger, scallions, shredded cucumber.
Okay, we're doing it again because I picked out, because I thought what was so amazing is I'm reading it and it's like so-men noodles, and I'm thinking I know ramen noodles, I know udon noodles, I know soba noodles, but I don't know soden noodles, and I love that. So of course I looked them up. They're another wheat flour delicate noodle, but then we hear the incredible description, the lapis color of the eggplant, the green of the shiso leaf, and so yes.
We can smell it. We can taste it before the story even begins. I thought it was so interesting how we're already brought in, again, in a very short time span, because we're talking about this tiny little book that has already set the stage. We feel like we're in the room with this woman and her teacher.
Right. So Sensei is her teacher. And I don't know about you. I found the relationship a little bit it wasn't clear to me. It was ambiguous. He makes reference to his first wife leaving at one point, and they have some intimacy. They have their hands upon one another. After this meal, they take a nap on a tatami mat. So not your typical meal, but so I love that. But I also thought, what a flip, and a friend of mine noted this, which is, typically, it might be like a youngster, a child asking a parent, tell me a story.
Right.
But in this case, it's the teacher who opens the book saying, tell me a story from a long time ago.
You know, what's really funny is I didn't think anything of the relationship because she goes into such detail, which we're about to go into some detail now because, of course, we don't want to spoil, but she goes into detail about the story from her childhood that makes me think that her mind has gone to a completely different place, and she's really not there with him anymore because she is reliving this moment from this ongoing moment from childhood.
Oh, that is so interesting. And the structure of the book kind of does mirror that. But I felt like they were tuned in to one another. But I did, throughout the whole 79 pages, I did keep wondering, what is their relationship? It turns out these are characters from a previous book. And one thing, without giving away the book, that I found amazing, if I may,
yes,
is at the end of the book.
As you're looking for your page, I'll just remind people I'm speaking with Jill Medvedow for our regular segment, Big Little Books. And right now we're talking about the book Parade by Hiromi Kawakami.
So in the afterword, she writes, sometimes I think about stories that have ended. As the author of these stories, I have created so many different episodes and emotions. In the moment when I am writing them down, these people and events become just as real to me as anything else that exists in the world. Okay, goes on, and she begins to wonder, is that world really over and done with? And so in this case, she returns to these two characters. It's not a sequel, but it's fascinating to me to describe that inner life of the writer that way.
Well, it's even more fascinating because one of my favorite questions to ask authors, and actually I think I ask a lot of actors and playwrights this too, is do the characters live on with you after? Most of them, I would say 90% of them tell me, no. As soon as it's done, I don't think about it anymore. Elizabeth Strout, different example of this. Hopefully we'll have her on the show soon to talk about that. But it's fascinating to me because I guess I don't think like that because I always think about characters. I'm still thinking about how the English Understand Wool,
Yes.
our first book, it has not left me. But to know that authors often just move on. But let's go to her childhood.
Okay.
I'm going to put the onus on you. What do we want to reveal about what is so interesting, magical, bizarre about
I'm
her
going to
childhood?
give it up.
Okay.
Because I myself read it 3 times, pretty much in a row. The story that she tells, Tsukiko is the character, is about from 3rd grade. And it talks about these folkloric characters, tengus, that appear to her out of nowhere and accompany her to school and other places, and her evolving relationship with them. And they're a sort of an imaginary friend. Well, there's 2 of them, imaginary friends, right? That seems very typical of childhood. But these do not seem like typical childhood friends. And they kind of function, in addition to being a friend, like a conscience, almost, because they appear during a period of time when this 3rd grader is witnessing, and by not doing anything, we might say complicit with some bullying. And this is all very gently told.
Yes.
But I found that an amazing thing. And the way that the author is able to convey childhood with such sincerity. It's like it captures a childhood voice, I thought, extraordinarily well. A third grade voice.
Filtered through adulthood.
Yes.
And you get the sense that this is somebody who is weaving her way back into this time in her life in perhaps a way she hasn't talked about in a long time, if ever. Again, as she's with this teacher, and as an adult is probably able to better process and understand what she witnessed, aka the bullying and other elements of her childhood that she wouldn't have processed in the same way as a child.
No, and these creatures actually are very specific, and they are part of the illustrations in an abstracted way, but they're red and have pointy noses. And in this particular instance where this other 3rd grade girl is being bullied, they acknowledge her. And all of a sudden, our character is not alone and is shown a different path. Her mother has had her own version of it, and so do her little childhood pals.
So how do we dissect this?
How do we
Because
understand that?
That is a pretty monumental turn in the book. Again, you have to read it to just get the gorgeous poetry of the book. but to have this acknowledgement that so many people have this or these entities tagging along with them.
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is you're not alone. You are not alone. And the fact that these are kind of, if not pervasive, they're familiar in the culture. They're recognized. The fact that others can't see them, you only see them kind of at the point either when you need them or at a certain moment in your life. And that does, even though not the reality of these creatures, but the idea that frequently when you need something, when you're open to it, something might appear.
Well, I thought it was pretty extraordinary that these creatures feel. I mean, that's one of the most visceral elements of who and what they are.
Yes, they're sad. I mean, and you feel it, and the picture is painted for you as well. And then it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, that's the other thing, is it doesn't turn into something else. That moment in her life and in our life, because it's a story within a story. So that's the device that works for the book, right? But the inner story ends, and then the outer story ends.
Did you see the Night Parade of 1,000 Demons? I hope I have that title right. That was at the Mass Art Museum recently. Misako Miki, Japanese artist, looking back at this ancient tale and the demons that come out, and her having her own twist on these creatures that come out at night that people through centuries of storytelling, 1,000 years of storytelling in Japan, thought were evil, and her twist was, what if they're being othered this entire time and they're actually something different? I kept thinking of that look in that exhibition when I was hearing this.
Thank you, Gregory Maguire.
Right.
It's like a Wicked reference.
I was saying the same exact thing because, of course, Gregory Maguire, a mutual friend of ours, wrote Wicked, and his thought was, yeah, what if they got it all wrong? What if we all got it all wrong?
Exactly.
And she's not actually wicked this entire time.
It's funny, the reference that I thought of when I was reading it, and I hope I get this right, is that Wim Wenders film. It was out a few years ago about the toilet cleaner in Japan. I think it's called A Perfect Day.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you have to see it. It is so good. But it talk about a non-larger than life job in a way. You know, it's not epic. It's the opposite of epic. And the unbelievable quietness, dignity of his day and his life and all that it encompasses, and the moments of relationship and the moments of solitude. And that frame feels like it belongs on this book as well.
We only have about a minute left, but we have to talk about, especially with you being the former ICA director, we have to talk about the art in this book. So you read it 3 times. When I finished the book, I went back and I read it, air quotes, just by looking at the pictures, because I realized if I skipped the text and looked at all the pictures were telling me this story as well, because it's beautifully illustrated as well.
Okay, I am so interested to hear what you think, because I've spent a lifetime looking at art, and I thought as I looked at it, I had these zillion different ideas. Like some of the illustrations look like caulders, except that the forms, the geometric forms, if you look closely, have the little faint faces of the Tengu, or the kind of serial markings of Hanna Darbovin, the artist. And so, again, it combined, for me, the abstraction with specificity and kind of making something visible, kind of like the ideas, Not Theories Orchestra, taking something right in plain view and transforming it into something exquisite, but also like the specificity of like the different parts of the bicycles. And as I was listening, I thought, oh my goodness, it's a lot like this book. These are such different versions of like what making art is about. I loved it.
I love that you said that, because I find that so often just hosting the Culture Show now, that it turns out we had theme shows that we didn't even design, but we can find these through lines through creativity and how people look at the world, because we are all human beings and there is a universality to how we approach life to some degree. I just want to mention that it's illustrated by Takako Yoshitomi. So again, we've been talking about Parade of Folktale by Hiromi Kawakami. for our series our newly renamed series,
Yes.
Big Little Books. Do we have our next one yet?
No.
Okay, we're working on it.
We're working on it, though.
I think we're close.
We're very close.
We're very close. All right. Jill Medvedow, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So good to see you.
Jill Medvedow is the Director Emerita of the Institute of Contemporary Art. She's the literary connoisseur for our book club series, Big Little Books, not to mention the creative force behind it. Regularly, we discuss short books that you can read in one sitting. Well, coming up, we're sticking with essential reading, this time through Boston Art Review. Its latest issue looks at history, art, and how the two shape the way we think about America at 2:50. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In Iran, political activism can be deadly. Even after this women's rights activist fled the country, the government continued to threaten and harass her family. None of this has stopped me from doing my work, she says. Hear that story and more global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill, a garden destination 50 miles from Boston. Visitors can discover summer with thousands of blooms, twilight experiences, art exhibitions, and educational programs for all ages. NEBG.org. And the Museum of Science, exploring our world and beyond with free Omni films for everyone on Sunday, July 5th, thanks to MathWorks. Ticket information at MOS.org. And The Huntington, the Tony Award and Pulitzer Prize-winning satirical comedy Eureka Day, is playing at the Huntington through June 28th. Written by Jonathan Spector. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org.
National Media Visits. We live here. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app. Trusted local news.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. By the way, programming note, tune in Tuesday for Olivia Wilde. She'll be here to talk about her new film, The Invite. But right now, Boston Art Review has become a vital field guide to the region's art scene, who's making work, where to see it, and what larger stories are coming into view. Its latest edition looks at history, how we tell it, who gets to shape it, and how it shows up in the art being made around us right now. It also includes a special section tied to America's 250th and a new art radar map of Greater Boston's art spaces. Back with us to talk about it all is Boston Art Review founder and editor-in-chief, Jameson Johnson. Welcome back to the show. Great to see you as always.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know so much of why you produce this magazine is to, like the Culture Show, to bring people into the art sphere. So let's start with the Art Radar map and how you're orienting people and what people should be finding in your literal map that you have in your hands right now.
Well, it's so fun to be in the library because I love this library, and it's fun to be in a room with people that are here. And we just went and passed around some of the maps. But the idea behind the Art Radar map is that there's this idea that the internet is this kind of democratic place, right? You can Google and something will pop up and tell you where to go and what to see. That's not totally the case anymore. You have to know really specifically what to look up. So if you type in art in Boston, you might only see a few things, and you might not see the galleries or studio buildings or nonprofit spaces that are really vital to each one of every Boston neighborhood, but that aren't going to pop up if you Google art in Boston.
Because
so
they can't pay for the sponsorship and they can't feed the algorithm. This is why it becomes non-democratic.
Exactly. I mean, we have no idea how the invisible AI machine of algorithm Google works. It's also really challenging and time-consuming to figure out how to kind of beat the algorithm. So we're going old school, and we made a paper map called the Art Radar, and the idea is that it meets people where they are. So we have over 200 locations on the map. It includes a category for on view. So these are listings for exhibitions and events, updated quarterly on the back. So these are spaces with kind of time-bound exhibitions on view. We also have public art, which we've chosen to do new or noteworthy, so pieces that really anchor a neighborhood or are new. Boston is filled with public art. If we had every single piece of public art on here, it would be a different map. And then our kind of like special sauce category called While You're Here, which includes things like bookstores or nonprofit spaces or kind of off the beaten path hubs that artists and neighborhood ambassadors have nominated as kind of essential to their creative community, but wouldn't necessarily, like I said, come up in that Google. So the map is distributed to all of the locations on the map and is also at another 300 locations across Greater Boston, including libraries, but also laundromats and supermarkets and cafes. So the idea is that it's really meeting people kind of where they are in their daily life and not necessarily something that they have to look up to find.
And very significantly, there's a lot of information on that map. The arts are thriving.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's the best part about handing this map out. I love watching people open it and they go, oh my goodness, there's so much more happening here than I thought. I think that kind of moment when you start to see something condensed into a single piece of paper you can hold in your hand really changes your opinion about a place.
And we know that people are returning to physical things. This is where we are all at this moment. I'm speaking with Jameson Johnson, founder and editor-in-chief of Boston Art Review. The latest issue is out now. You can pick it up or subscribe. America 250, we're headed right headlong into this anniversary in a couple weeks. There is a lot of art that is meeting this moment and looking at the country's moments. You write in the magazine that you were a little resistant to do this at first. We know it's everywhere. I mean, from time to time I think, okay, we've talked about this a lot, but this is a really poignant time to take stock of our country, especially through culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I was hesitant. One, it's a big task. And two, I think it's a challenging time to feel patriotic and excited about what's happening in our country. And we're seeing that arts and culture are being weaponized by our federal administration. And so that then kind of became the fuel for why we need to say something in this moment. And we think of every issue of Boston Art Review as a kind of time capsule. Again, back to the library, it's so important to me that these issues live on shelves at university libraries and public libraries like the BPL, because in 100 years, someone might pick this up and could say, what's happening in Boston in 2026. And so not including critical discourse around the 250th would be a disservice to this moment, but perhaps even more crucially, a disservice to a future.
Well, as your issue reminds us, in one particular essay about a piece called Bicentennial Blues, there was skeptical conversations about the direction of our country and where our country was 50 years ago in 1976. There's been a lot of conversation about bunting and presidential visits and how the country was looked at then. But as you remind us, as the arts remind us, no, there was interrogation then too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually two pieces that kind of interrogate this moment and look back on the bicentennial. So that was 1976. One by Brian Boyles, who is executive director at Mass Humanities, and he digs into this concert that happened with Gil Scott-Heron and the song about the bicentennial blues. And it's all about Boston and this kind of promise of what this moment was going to be, and kind of recognizing the failures of maybe collective action or what was promised. This was another time the country was at war. And then we have another piece that is maybe a little more uplifting, which is Suchi Saraswat's essay on Konstantin Manos's photographs, which were actually on display in 1976 right outside of this building. There's an amazing photograph in the magazine. So he went around and took photos of Bostonians for about a year. And there was an exhibition that was on view in this grand pavilion right outside of the Prudential Center. And now 50 years later, those photographs, the show came down. They were filed away into the archives at the Boston Athenaeum. And so Lauren Graves, the curator there, brought these photographs out and wanted to find out who was in these photos. And so she went on this grand tour to kind of community source information about who was in these photographs from 1975 and 1976. So two, kind of looking back at what was our country then and what were we looking forward to, and what can that tell us about this moment and what we might be looking forward to.
And who was showing up. Well, speaking of this moment, you also profile the new Greenway mural, which is also meeting this anniversary moment in our country. If people don't know what we're talking about, there's the big Greenway mural that every year or so is curated by a different organization. An artist is featured. Basically, this large, I think it's an exhaust ventilation building, gets turned over to them, but it becomes a landmark in this city for, again, about a year. What do we find this year?
Yeah, so Rixie, who is a Boston-bred street muralist artist who this is kind of like a major show of force for her. So the piece is called The Midnight Ride, and it includes a blindfolded woman who is situated in front of a horse, and you see a lot of kind of American symbols. You see stars, you see red, white, and blue colors. But the idea behind the piece is that it's really a celebration of revolutions outside of the United States. And so looking at Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Indigenous revolutions and taking into account what does an alternative revolution look like? What are the histories that were not celebrated or not documented? So that's actually opening on Saturday, and we're doing a promo, and the first 30 attendants who go to the opening on Saturday will get a free copy of issue 16 of Boston Art Review.
Well, so this is happening Saturday during the afternoon?
During the afternoon, I think it's 3 to 6 p.m.
And I only asked that because I read from reading your magazine that this was intentionally designed to have a different effect, whether it's day or night, which is when I first saw it coming out of South Station.
Yeah. So I was just at the Greenway earlier today with Audrey Lopez, who's the curator over there, and I learned something that I'd never noticed before, but I was shocked to hear. The Dewey Square mural has never been illuminated at night. There are not spotlights shining on it. So they just got a grant, I believe, and they're in the process of building permanent light fixtures that will illuminate the mural for, into the future. But the idea with this mural is that it will be activated with a projectionist. I believe their name is Pamela Hirsch. We'll fact check that, who will be projecting onto the mural, I believe, in the fall, once the days get shorter and the nights get longer.
Well, it's magical to come across that and to see where all the artists are taking us, because each one is curated and selected so that it's a very different artistic viewpoint, very different aesthetic, and of course, different story that's being told. We're a little bit short on time for you today, which is why we invite you back, because we're going to talk about another civic effort you have underway to really look at how this city and this region is operating when it comes to the arts. We look forward to having you back for that. Thank you, as always.
Thank you, Jared.
Jameson Johnson is the founder and editor-in-chief of Boston Art Review. The latest issue, out now, looks at history, memory, and America at 250. You can find the magazine, the map, and more about where to pick up a copy or to order a subscription at bostonartreview.com. Well, thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow for Ensemble Altera. The chorus is bringing its finely tuned chamber sound to GBH's state-of-the-art Fraser Performance Studio, plus the Harlem Teen Program that gave rise to a host of today's most famous artists. Thanks today to Henry Santoro for curating our Culture Cast. Our engineer is Bill Piacitelli. The BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Matthew Glover, and Patrick Lally. Our interns are Katie McCabe and Adina Velasquez. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at
The third, today on the Curiosity Desk, it's a special hour of the show dedicated to America's